Hey people, welcome back to the channel. This is a story in which Naruto is Madara's and Hashirama's grandson and is very OP and smart. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. Leave a comment if you want to suggest a fanfic for me to read. Check the description for credits and support the creator of the story. So let's begin. Legacy Chapter 23 Clash of Titans. Arena. Naruto and Gaara were standing a few feet from each other. Each one of them had emotionless faces as they eyed and studied their opponent. The proctor had already started the match, but neither of them moved, not wanting to make any mistake. Even though Gaara knew that his sand would defend him, he somehow knew that Naruto was strong. Gaara's mother, aka Ikibi or Shukaku, had warned Gaara to be careful around Naruto since he was also a Jinchuriki and had the Kyuubi, the strongest of the 9 Biju. The silence in the arena was uncomfortable. There was no sound, no birds, no wind. The crowd itself was silent, watching what it was the most anticipated match since the first round. Want help? Kurama asked. No. I wanted this on my own, I just need a refill. Should I go empty? Naruto replied, making Kurama smirk at the devotion of his vessel in proving that he can be strong alone. Suddenly a small breeze lifted up and signaled the start of the match. Gaara's sand slowly started leaving his gourd on his back and started dancing around him. Naruto saw the sand starting to move and jumped back to gain some distance. Both of them were ready for their fight. Gaara already had his sand outside ready to crush our fellow blonde, and Naruto was watching it very carefully with his Sharingan blazing. Gaara suddenly clutched his head in pain, making Naruto raise an eyebrow to why suddenly Gaara would feel pain. It must be the Ikibi, Naruto thought as he watched Gaara clutching his head trying to relieve his pain as best as he could. Just as it began, the pain suddenly stopped and Gaara slowly raised his head to show Naruto his face, angry for blood. Prove my existence, Uzumaki, Gaara shouted and sent forth a wave of sand towards Naruto, intending to crush him instantly. Naruto started evasive maneuvers and he watched the sand splitting into various waves trying to outflank Naruto. However, Naruto's speed coupled with his Sharingan made sure Naruto could predict the path of each wave, making sure he would never be caught. It's a shame they removed the water from the previous match. Since I don't have affinity towards water, I can't use high-ranking moves without a water source nearby, Naruto thought as he kept dodging the sand. Let's see if his sand armor can keep up with me, Naruto thought as he disappeared in a burst of speed. Naruto quickly outmaneuvered the sand and slipped through it by ducking and sliding beneath the sand and delivered a good right hook into Gaara, sending him tumbling to the ground. Naruto watched as the sand that he used to attack quickly rushed to Gaara to absorb his impact. Naruto also noticed that the sand armor around Gaara's body itself was barely cracked and had already reformed. That thing is hard, Naruto thought as he analyzed in minute detail Gaara's sand armor, trying to find the best weakness. If he had the water, he would drench his sand with it, making it slower and more chakra demanding. However, that wasn't the case. Naruto picked a few shurikens and threw them at Gaara from multiple angles, but the sand quickly formed a round shell around him and blocked all of them. It seems that his sand is automatic since some of the shurikens went to blind spots that Gaara couldn't see, Naruto thought as he watched Gaara drop his protective shield, making the shurikens fall to the floor. Let's test his strength, Naruto thought as he was about to pull his big guns to gradually try and penetrate his ultimate defense. Raiden, Shuriken Kage Bushin no Jutsu, lightning style, Shuriken Shadow Clone, Naruto said, and he threw a single shuriken towards Gaara and they multiplied into dozens. However, differently from other times, these shuriken were charged with Raiden chakra, and since lightning was strong against earth, it should work. Gaara brought his sand to block the shurikens but was surprised when the penetrated deeply into the sand and he had to reinforce the wall of sand to keep the shurikens from hitting them. If they were made with chakra metal, they would have penetrated cleanly through his defenses, Naruto thought. Gaara quickly dropped the shurikens into the ground and said, "Sand's bullets," and sent multiple small round spheres made of sand to Naruto at high speeds. Kaden, Gukakyu no Jutsu, great fireball technique, Naruto said and expelled a fireball towards the incoming sand bullets, completely disintegrating them. Kaden, Ryuka no Jutsu, dragon fire technique, Naruto said and he flashed throat hand seals and sent a stream of fire towards Gaara, who used a wall of sand to shield the flames. The stream of fire collided with the sand wall and the heat generated from the clash transformed the sand into crystal glass, effectively disabling the sand that was used to block Naruto's attack. Would you look at that? How come I didn't think of that? Naruto thought before he said to Gaara. Chemistry 101. What happens when you superheat sand? Gaara's eye twitched at the comment but ignored it as he felt his mother yelling with excitement in his head as he tried to spill Naruto's blood to prove his existence. Gaara sent his sand towards Naruto once again. I wonder what he can do once his sand is gone, Naruto thought as he thought about it. Since Gaara always carried that gourd with him, so he should be limited to that amount. So Naruto could use his fire style to disintegrate or turn into glass his sand until he runs out. Naruto once again disappeared in a show of speed and reappeared right behind Gaara, surprising and making his sand unable to come to his defense. Raiden, lightning fist, Naruto called out. Naruto channeled Raiden chakra to his hand and delivered a massive punch to Gaara's chest, completely destroying his sand armor and managing to wound Gaara to the point he almost broke one of his ribs. Crowd Gaara got hit hard, Temari said. During her short life she never seen anyone manage to touch or even wound Gaara with the exception of Naruto, who somehow always managed to sneak through his defenses. He did it during the preliminaries and he's doing it again now. This is bad, Temari, Kankuro said. I know, Temari replied. He might unleash it before the sound gives the signal, Kankuro said, but they couldn't do anything but to watch as their brother was turned into punching bag. Wow, look at him go, Ino said. She could barely keep up with Naruto's speed. Naruto still had his weights on, but he was pumping his legs with chakra and was going too fast for most genin to track. After all, only speed could best Gaara's sand defenses. Arena Kaden. Gukaku no Jutsu, great fireball technique, Naruto said and expelled a fireball of gigantic proportions. It quickly collided with the sand waves that were coming towards Naruto and transformed into glass. Naruto quickly dashed to the glass and gave it a hard punch, completely shattering it. Naruto was about to unleash another jutsu when sand arms rose from underneath the ground and trapped Naruto by his ankles. Die! Gaara yelled as Naruto was quickly enveloped in sand. Sabaku Q, sand coffin, Gaara said, and Naruto was completely covered in sand to the point he wasn't even visible to anyone. Sabaku Soso, sand funeral, Gaara said as he increased the pressure in his sand coffin, completely crushing Naruto. Yes, I've proved my existence, Gaara said, laughing evilly as seemingly crushed his biggest foe in his sand, spilling his blood to his mother. Naruto, Kurenai yelled from the balcony. Aside from her, everyone was silent, waiting for something to happen. Everyone was frozen in complete silence when Naruto's voice echoed from within the sand, really Gaara? You know I'm better than this. Gaara's eyes widened in shock as he watched Naruto very calmly walk out of the sand prison. The sand didn't even move as Naruto walked out, as if Naruto was nothing more than a ghost or the basic Bushin. It's time I got rid of your sand, Naruto said before he made two shadow clones, each one taking Naruto's side, one on the left and the other on the right. All three Narutos moved in perfect synchronization. Kaden. Goryuka no Jutsu, great dragon fire technique, the clones said before expelling a massive torrent of fire towards Gaara. This technique was AB rank 1 and the improved version of the normal dragon fire 1. Futen. Daitapa, great breakthrough, the original Naruto said from the middle of the clones and sent a gust of wind that mixed with the fire and created what could only be described as an inferno. Gaara stood in shock as he watched the fire come closer and closer towards him. That technique had a very long reach and seemed to be really pumped with chakra. Suna no Tate, sand shield, Gaara said, and all of his sand left his gourd and surround Gaara, making a rather thin protective shell. It seemed that Gaara already lost quite a bit of sand to Naruto's previous attacks. The fire clashed with the shield and Gaara disappeared from the audience view as they could only see a torrent of fire completely enveloping Gaara. Naruto ran out of air in his lungs and dropped his techniques to see Gaara smirking inside a glass dome. Gaara quickly shattered the glass and eyed the blonde. What can you do now without sand? Naruto asked. Fool, Gaara said before going trough hand signs. Suna Shigur, sand rain, Gaara said, and strangely enough it started raining, however instead of water it started raining sand, and a good deal of it. I can easily create new sand by compressing the mineral underground as well. And as long I have sand I can do anything, Gaara said before restocking his supplies of sand and preparing to restart his attacks. Looks like destroying the sand is useless, Naruto thought, sighing as he realized all that work was for nothing. Cage box They are very skilled, the Raikage commented. But the Uzumaki brat seems to be in a pickle, the Raikage said. What makes you think that? The Hokage asked confused. From the battle I noticed he tried to destroy the sand but it seems that the sand brat can create more, the Raikage said and they both turned to the Kazekage for an explanation. After all the supposed fourth Kazekage was known for using his gold dust. It would be a very dangerous problem if we ran out of sand so we had to find new ways to create it on the spot, the Kazekage explained. Interesting, the Raikage said. The amount of skill in jutsus they are throwing easily puts them in Jonin level in ninjutsu, the Kazekage said. It was expected from Jinchurikis, the Raikage said. Yes, the Hokage agreed. Crowd how can they be so strong? Kiba asked. He didn't understand, he was from a clan, he trained every day and he was ranked in the top during the academy days. Naruto had to grow up fast so he could shield himself from the hate he received, Kakashi explained. Besides from what I understand he read almost the entire library of Konoha, Kakashi said and everyone had their eyes widened to the size of dinner plates. How is that even possible? Sakura asked. After all Sakura was known by her book smarts. Simple. The Sharingan provides the user with photographic memory and Naruto can make hundreds of shadow clones, Kakashi explained. What do clones have to do with everything? Ino asked. Shadow clones are special. When they dispel everything that the clone learned is transmitted to the user. The shadow clone was originally created for scouting, Kakashi explained. That's amazing, Sakura said. She understood very well the ramifications of said jutsu. How come they don't teach us that in the academy? It sounds like a perfect jutsu, Sakura asked. Because it's a forbidden jutsu, Kakashi explained and a few shivered at the thought of forbidden. The shadow clone takes great amounts of chakra to perform and for most creating a single shadow clone can kill the user. Even me who has chakra levels bordering on Kage level can only create about 20 without suffering chakra exhaustion, Kakashi said. How in the hell can Naruto create so many? Kiba asked. Naruto was the more chakra than anyone in the village. I estimate he has around 4 to 5 times the amount of the Hokage and keeps increasing, Kakashi explained with a bit of pride. How in the world is that possible? Sakura asked. They were now understanding just how powerful Naruto really was. 2 reasons. He has so much chakra because he's an Uzumaki who were known to have massive chakra reserves. An ordinary Chunin had much chakra as a Kage. And the second reason is because he's a Jinchuriki. The Jinchuriki tend to develop large chakra reserves due to having the Biju's chakra running through their coils. Put those two together and you have a chakra monster, Kakashi explained. Amazing, Sakura said amazed by Naruto once again. That's pretty much it. I've rarely seen Naruto running out of chakra. I was already on the ground panting and Naruto wasn't even sweating, Hinata said. Suddenly another person walked into the middle of the crowd and was the one and only Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke-kun, Sakura said squealing in her traditional way. Her respect for Naruto may have increased but she still remained faithful to the Uchiha. How are you feeling Sasuke? Kakashi asked but the scowl on Sasuke's face told him everything. You knew didn't you? Sasuke asked almost rhetorically. Yes I did, Kakashi flatly said. Then why didn't you said anything? Sasuke said yelling. Because he asked me not to and I wasn't going to betray a promise to someone no matter what. Besides I did tell you, you knew his bloodline was well you knew your own. Kakashi said and Sasuke scoffed. What was one the first thing I taught you? Kakashi said but Sasuke remained silent until Kakashi said, always look underneath the underneath. Sasuke simply crossed his arms and started cursing mentally at his sensei. Arena this is the end, Gaara said before going trough hand seals. Ryusa Bakuru, sand tsunami, Gaara called out and gigantic wave of sand erupted in front of him going towards Naruto at high speeds. The wall of sand had the height of the arena walls and covered its entire width leaving no room for evasion. It was a few seconds before the entire arena was covered in sand. Even the proctor had to leave the arena ground and made his way towards the crowd as it seemed the safest place to be. Naruto was nowhere to be seen and Gaara thought his plan worked and Naruto was trapped beneath all that sand. Sabaku Taiso, giant sand burial, Gaara said and slammed both of his hands on the ground and shockwaves erupted from his palms and spread through the whole arena shacking it. You were weak Uzumaki, Gaara said taking a few deep breaths. His sand may be his absolute defense and best weapon, but pulling such amounts was rather chakra consuming. I told you not to underestimate me. Naruto's voice echoed through the whole arena like some disembodied voice. Gaara was in shock as he watched Naruto swirling into appearance in front of him. The swirl seemed to be originating from his eyes. It was only a couple of seconds before Naruto was standing in front of him unharmed. Cage box what in the world was that? The cage said shocked. That technique seemed like Jikuken ninjutsu, space-time jutsu. The blonde brat seemed to materialize himself on the arena. It looks like some form of Jikuken ninjutsu, the Raikage thought out loud with his hand on his chin. Jiraiya Dono, the Raikage said looking at the Toad Sage. You seem to always teach someone with talent for space-time ninjutsu, the Raikage said. Don't look at me, I didn't teach him that, Jiraiya said waving his hands. And that particular technique seemed strong as he didn't do any hand seals, the Raikage said. What is it with blondes and space-time techniques? The Raikage wondered out loud, making the Hokage chuckle. Arena Naruto was running full speed with his gravity seals still on as he saw no need to disable them. He was running and the sand was immediately after him, trying to stop him from reaching Gaara and at the same time trying to kill him once and for all. Naruto easily approached Gaara and channeling lightning chakra to his fists and feet he started his onslaught on Gaara. He threw a right hook and it hit Gaara perfectly, destroying his sand armor. Almost immediately Gaara's sand tried to catch him but only phased right trough Naruto as he continued his attacks at Gaara. What is going on? Gaara asked in thought. He didn't understand. The sand wasn't able to grab hold of Naruto and yet he continued to punch him like no tomorrow. Gaara was reduced to a mere punching bag. Naruto was again ready to launch the next round of attacks. Naruto bypassed the sand and slid right under Gaara and gave him a kick in the chin, sending him to the air. Naruto quickly disappeared in a burst of speed and appeared right behind Gaara in the air and gave him a drop kick filled with Raiden chakra that completely destroyed his sand armor and sent him to the ground hard. Gaara hit the ground and everyone could hear the crack of a few bones. It was loud and clear that Gaara wasn't going to win this match. Naruto landed on the ground and jumped back a few feet so he could watch the state of Gaara as the cloud of dust was settling. The dust cleared and everyone could see Gaara slowly rising and the sand whirling around him and reforming his sand armor around his skin. Gaara's hand took the hand seal of Tiger and the rest of the sand started enveloping itself around him, forming a solid cocoon of hardened sand. A few seconds later a little bit of sand started gathering a few feet above the ground and started taking the form of a small sphere. Moments later the sand stopped and became a perfect eye that seemed to be watching Naruto while Gaara was inside the cocoon going trough hand seals slowly while saying them out loud. He's completely sealed off, Naruto thought out loud as he was considering what to do in order to breach the sand cocoon. Naruto decided not to waste chakra. It's not as if he was already getting low, but other weapons are still good, you can't always rely on ninjutsu after all. Naruto was calmly walking towards the cocoon and whistling along the way. He arrived near the cocoon and suddenly sand spears shot from the ball of sand trying to pierce the blonde, but he continued walking as if it was nothing and yet the spears look embedded deep in Naruto. Naruto arrived near the cocoon and calmly went to his pocket and took 2 explosive tags. He placed them in his right hand and slipped right through the cocoon using his Kamui. Sand or no sand, it didn't matter what it was. Naruto's Kamui is a space-time technique and as such isn't limited to such obstacles. Naruto's arm reached the inside and released both tags and walked back without a care in the world. When he was about 10 feet from the sand ball he did a half-tiger sign with his right hand and said, Kai. As he said the tags inside the cocoon suddenly exploded but the cocoon remained, but everyone could see the bulks in the sand sphere due to the explosion. And since Gaara was inside and the explosion couldn't leave, there wasn't much place to run or protect himself with, making Gaara take the full force of the explosion. A few seconds after the explosion the sand that made the cocoon started to shake and fall to the ground, revealing a slightly mutated Gaara. His right arm was completely disproportional and was made entirely of sand. Gaara also had a sand tail on his back and half of his face was sand with his right eye being Shukaku's. All in all it was a partial transformation of Gaara's Biju. Make me feel alive Uzumaki, Gaara yelled as he slightly moved to test his new appearance. There was no sand on the ground of in his gourd as it was used to his partial transformation, so the lack of sand would be a plus. I guess it's time I pull it off, Naruto thought before channeling chakra to his storage seals his wristbands and pulled his favorite weapon. Clang, the weapon sounded as Naruto grabbed it by the handle with his right hand and rested it on the ground. It was a wide fan with 3 blood-red tomos on each side. It had a long handle with bandages wrapped around the base. The main part of the weapon was light brown with the edges being black. Flashback, Naruto was 9 years old and was exploring his true house, the Namikaze compound, if you could call it that. In fact, it was a fairly big house built for harboring a medium family or a couple intending to build one. Naruto was looking through the various rooms around the house and started going down the stairs into the basement. When he arrived, he saw a lot of weapons. Swords, shurikens, daggers, hundreds of 3-pronged kunai, but from all of that there was one weapon that was standing out of all of them. Kurama, who was looking through his vessel's eyes, immediately recognized it. Holy shit, Kurama said out loud, making Naruto jump from the sudden sound spike. Damn, Naruto said, nursing his head. Keep it down, Naruto said. Do you even know what that weapon is? Kurama asked. Naruto knew exactly what that weapons was, but he didn't seem particularly surprised by it. After all, his grandfather was known for using it quite extensively during his time. There, hanged in the wall, was Uchiha Madara's gunbai, or battle fan. It's my grandfather's trademark weapon, so what? Naruto asked, clearly not understanding just what he had. You fool, that is no ordinary weapon, Kurama said, and seeing Naruto's confused face he decided to elaborate. Just listen, Kurama said, and entered his lecture mode. You know the legend of the Sage of Six Paths, right? I did tell you about him a couple months ago, Kurama asked. Yes, I remember, Naruto replied. My father, or Raikudo Sennin, Sage of Six Paths, as you know, had special eyes known as the Rinnegan, the eyes of the gods. He used the power of his eyes extensively during his lifespan. During his life he created the 9 Biju, that's why we call him father, understand so far? Kurama asked, and Naruto nodded. However, that wasn't the only thing he created. During his life, Raikudo Sennin created a special set of tools and weapons he used. In total there were 6 tools, and that particular fan is one of them, Kurama said, and Naruto's eyes widened. I see you understand the implications. For starters, those weapons are several times more powerful than any others. You can't even compare them. However, there is a downfall in those weapons. Anyone other than a direct descendant of my father, that is a senju or a pure-blood Uchiha, those weapons require massive amounts of chakra to use and would kill a regular human just by them lifting the weapon, Kurama said, finished his explanation. Awesome, Naruto said as he eyed the weapon. He would definitely learn how to use it properly. Since I'm a pure-blood Uchiha, I can use it without that heavy chakra usage, right? Naruto asked. Yes, also I forgot to mention that those weapons are pretty much indestructible as they are made of a special metal that my father himself created, Kurama said. Naruto hesitantly placed his right hand on the hilt and lifted the weapon from the wall, holding it. It seemed as though it was made of metal. It wasn't particular heavy and it wasn't even draining Naruto of chakra, for now it seemed as nothing more than an ordinary weapon. As Naruto removed the fan from the wall, a piece of paper fell to the ground. Naruto bent over and picked it up, and there was writing in it. Minato, it's good to see that you are still alive and well. I heard you are making quite a name to yourself. I guess you will be next in line for the Hokage position. I'm proud of you. I've sent you my favorite weapon as a gift since there is no Uchiha alive that can wield it properly besides you and me, also my time is nearing its end. Use it if you wish, but I guess that with me being your father it would destroy your credibility if word would leak out. A word of warning, I still intend to bring peace to this world and I hope we don't find each other in opposite paths. Good luck in your future and never forget your origins. Your father, Naruto reread the letter several times and still had trouble believing that it was a congratulating letter of some sort from Madara to his son. Would you look at this? Naruto said out loud, but nobody was listening except Kurama. I may hate Madara for controlling me, but I guess in the end he still cared for his family even though he clearly warned him, Kurama said as his respect for Madara grew a little bit. He still despised him, but at least he didn't forget his family. To foxes there wasn't anything more terrible and demeaning than abandoning your own kin. Do you think he would hurt his own son to achieve his goals? Naruto asked. How should I know? It's not like I knew Madara on a personal level, Kurama replied. At least he's trying to bring peace to the world. That can't be a bad thing, Naruto mused out loud. He said his time was short, so I guess he's truly dead, Naruto said as he picked the weapon and left the letter in the same place. It was the only thing he had that truly connected him to his grandfather. I suppose, Kurama said. End flashback, cage box is that? The cage asked when he noticed the weapon Naruto had pulled from his storage seal. There in Naruto's hand was the one and only war fan used by Uchiha Madara. It is, Uchiha Madara's war fan. To think I would see it again, the Hokage said, shocked that Naruto was in possession of said weapon. He knew very well that weapon since it was created by the Sage of Six Paths and that it was a powerful tool. I guess he was telling the truth. He really is Madara's grandson to be wielding his legendary gunbai, the Raikage commented. Kumo had gathered all of Rakudo Senin tools and they thought they had them all, but they didn't know that this fan was one of them as well. That brat really is a gold mine, Orochimaru thought, salivating at everything he learned today. Let's see if he can use it properly, the Raikage said. He knew a lot about Uchiha Madara. After all, the man was a legend and hailed as one of the strongest shinobi to ever exist, being defeated only by Senju Hashirama. Even to this day both of them are claimed to be something above shinobi, as even the more skilled ones couldn't even compete against such foes. Crowd I am possible, Sasuke said out loud as he watched Naruto grip Madara's gunbai. Looks like Naruto was telling the truth. He really is Madara's grandson. It matters not, no one will stand in my way, Sasuke thought. What is so special about that fan? Sakura asked. She didn't know why that fan provoked such reaction from Sasuke. Well, it isn't exactly taught in the academy, but that weapon is very well known among the older population. That weapon was Uchiha Madara's trademark weapon. He used it to blow away shinobi by creating powerful gusts of wind. It may have other powers, but I only heard of that one. He also used it to power up his fire attacks to the point he could unleash a true inferno into his enemies, Kakashi explained, and Sasuke seethed his teeth. That weapon should be in Sasuke's hand so he could defeat his brother. Unbelievable, Sakura said. Naruto seemed to be an endless pit of surprises. Where did he get it? I know from history that Madara left the village, Sakura asked. That I don't know, Kakashi replied while eyeing Hinata. Hinata sighed before she started explaining. It seemed that today she was the narrator in Naruto's story. It was a gift Madara sent to his son and Naruto's father, Hinata briefly explained, not wanting to go into much detail. He had it all this time? Kakashi asked, to no one with eyes widened. He never in a million of years would have thought his sensei had possession of such weapon. He had been to his house several times but never saw it. Well, he never actually went to the basement for that fact. I don't know what else to expect from the brat, Zabuza said, chuckling. He could never figure out the brat no matter how hard he tried. I'm sort of glad I didn't join this year's Chunin exams. I don't think I would stand a chance against such powerful opponents, Haku exclaimed. Don't sell yourself short, Haku. You are very strong, Zabuza said. Thank you, Zabuza-san, Haku replied. Arena let me show you my true power. No borrowed power, just me, Naruto stated out loud as his grip on his fan became stronger. Sand bullet, the transformed Gaara said, and from his new sand body exploded dozens of small spheres of sand that went towards Naruto with groundbreaking speed. Naruto, using his Sharingan, calculated the bullet's path, and with a single swing of his fan he completely destroyed the bullets, leaving no evidence of it. Naruto quickly made single-handed hand seals that he learnt from Haku and practiced it by using them in conjunction with his gunbai as his fan occupied his right hand. Kaiten Karyu Enden, Fire Dragon Bullet, Naruto called out and unlashed a massive torrent of white flames towards Gaara. Naruto, as he was unleashing his fire, he swinged his fan and said, Futon, fanned wind, and a powerful gust of wind emerged from his fan powering his flames. That was Naruto's most powerful fire attack. An A-rank attack, however this attack was powered by the fan's wind, easily making it jump to S-rank. Gaara coiled himself with his tail protecting his head and was engulfed in the flames, completely disappearing from view. Many people in the crowd and even some of the shinobi had to protect their eyes and avert their faces from the arena due to the amount of heat and light being generated from Naruto's attack. The proctor was considering if he would come out alive, and he wasn't even fighting. He was more concerned in running for his life, trying to get out of the way of the flames that seemed to engulf the whole arena. Enough, Gaara yelled and unleashed a roar that dispersed the flames around him, revealing a scorched Gaara, but otherwise okay. It seemed that sand powered by Shukaku's chakra made it unable to transform in glass and be destroyed. Gaara dashed towards Naruto, cocking his mutated right arm, trying to punch Naruto. Naruto channeled chakra to his gunbai and a semi-transparent circular barrier appeared in mid-air. Gaara's right arm connected with the barrier and a shockwave erupted, but the barrier didn't even waver or crack and Gaara recoiled his arm in pain. See Manga 601, Fuden Mugen Sajin Daitapa, Infinite Sand Great Breakthrough, Gaara said before multiple mouths formed all over his body, taking air in. They all breathed out at the same time and unleashed a powerful gust of wind filled with sand. Naruto pumped chakra into his fan and swinging it, Naruto created an equally powerful gust of wind that negated Gaara's attack. Naruto placed his fan in his back and secured it with chakra so she wouldn't slide off. Naruto immediately dashed towards Gaara and everyone could hear electricity crackling in his hands as it sounded even stronger than the ordinary Chidori. Gaara brought his mutated arm to try and hit Naruto to disrupt his attack, but that didn't work as Gaara wanted it to. Raikiri, Naruto yelled, and infusing his right hand with lightning chakra he continued his path towards Gaara, completely tearing through his arm and shoving his Raikiri trough Gaara's right shoulder, making him cry in pain as blood spattered to the ground. Crowd looks like Naruto can use that fan rather well, Zabuza said as he watched Naruto powering his flames using wind created by his fan but also creating some sort of shield to block Gaara's punch. Yes, apparently that fan has more powers that I didn't know, Kakashi mused out loud as he watched the battle unfold. They watched the battle unfold when Naruto placed his fan on his back and they heard a similar chirping like the Chidori. What's that? Sasuke asked as he had his Sharingan activated and tried to copy Naruto's technique. It looks like the Chidori, Sasuke stated. That's the upgraded version of my Chidori, Kakashi flatly said. What? There is a stronger version, why didn't you teach me that one instead? Sasuke asked, demanding answers. The Raikiri is an S-rank technique. You can only do the normal Chidori twice a day and the Raikiri takes that same amount to perform. Meaning you might not have enough chakra to perform it, Kakashi explained, and Sasuke scowled. How the hell does Naruto has more chakra than me? During our fight he used a lot of jutsu and look at him throwing jutsu like shurikens, how can he have so much? Sasuke asked, almost yelling. You can call it the Kekkei Genkai of the Uzumaki clan. Their members are born with unusually large chakra reserves. An ordinary Chunin has chakra that can rival Kage levels, Kakashi explained, and Sasuke scowled. If I told him he was a Senju, Sasuke would most likely faint. A Senju using the Sharingan? Ironic, Kakashi thought. So he has two Kekkei Genkai? Sakura asked. The chakra reserves aren't considered a Kekkei Genkai, so he only has the Sharingan, Kakashi explained, and Sasuke muttered something about lucky dobes. Cage box I don't think this can be considered an ordinary Chunin exams, the Raikage stated out loud. The amount of skill being used easily placed them in Jonin level. True, their skill is far beyond the regular Genin or Chunin for that matter, the Hokage agreed. And by the looks of it, it really is Madara's war fan by seeing the amount of power he's using, the Raikage commented with his hand on his chin. The Kage kept silent throughout the whole conversation and was considering when to signal the beginning of the invasion since Gaara seemed to be in partial transformation. And could at any time unleash the full Biju. Arena Blood, it's my blood. Gaara screamed in pain as he felt for the first time in his whole life the warmth of his blood. Suddenly the sand around rose to the sky and exploded in smoke. When the smoke cleared it showed an 80 feet tall sand tanuki with one tail. It was the fully released Ikibi, also known as Shukaku. Naruto watched the tanuki in front of him very carefully. Suddenly all around the arena it started falling feathers from the sky. So it begins, Naruto thought as he placed his hands in the ram hand seal and said, Kai, breaking the illusion. The invasion has begun, Naruto said as he prepared himself to face the fully unleashed Shukaku. 2 halves, 11:51 p.m. Atharva Patal. Chapter 24. Invasion. Konoha outskirts. About a half a mile outside of Konoha there was an Anbu team doing patrol. It was a regular mission and they seemed calm as patrol mission very rarely presented any trouble at all. Although they seemed calm on the outside, all of the Anbu personnel was warned about the incoming invasion, and as such they were all in high alert, they just didn't show it. Suddenly an Anbu of said team stopped and looked around. Sense anything? Another Anbu asked. No, Captain, the Anbu that stopped replied, while replied another thing to his team leader using the Anbu sign language. Possible shinobi group, the Anbu said, and the leader nodded. The Anbu quickly and stealthily approached the encampment, and say 8 sand shinobi fathered in a circle. In the middle of the circle was kanji spread through it and stopping just near each of the sand shinobi's feet. Each of the sand shinobis had a small scroll in their mouths and was going trough hand seals very slowly. From the looks of it, the technique seemed awfully complicated, and it seemed they must not get it wrong. Looks like a summoning ring, one Anbu said to their captain. Yes, we can't allow them to summon anything. Get in your positions, the captain ordered. I can't allow that, a voice suddenly said behind them. They all turned around and saw a man. He had auburn hair, dark eyes, he wore a simple black jacket and pants with mesh armor underneath. He carried a small canister strapped to his hip. It was none other than the Yondaime Kazekage himself. Suddenly, what appeared to be sand started flowing out of his canister, and quickly and swiftly it wrapped around all 4 Anbu, crushing them to death. Let's get this over with, the Kazekage commanded. Stadium, crowd what's this? Sakura asked as she watched feathers start falling from nowhere, making her sleepy. Genjutsu? She asked right before breaking the illusion. Genjutsu. Sasuke wondered as he also broke the illusion. We are being invaded by the sound and sand, Kakashi explained as he fought against a couple of sound shinobi. What? Sakura yelled. The sand is our ally, she stated. They are no longer our allies. We knew about this invasion since the end of the second phase of the Chunin exam, so we are prepared, Kakashi said, trying to ease the worries of a fresh genin. Then why didn't we know? Sasuke asked, getting pissed off by being kept in the dark. We had to keep it a secret so they didn't find out we knew. Kakashi said. Sakura was pretty much terrified from what was happening. She never had any real type of mission aside from the wave mission that got bumped into an A rank, so she was pretty fresh. Sakura was from a civilian family, and as such she wasn't prepared from the hardships of a shinobi life and lived her life sheltered in Konoha. Sakura was about to ask another thing when they noticed Gaara explode in sand and showing his fully transformed Biju. Sakura never got so scared in her life in seeing such a colossal beast right in front of her. In that moment she realized what people must have faced when the Kyuubi attacked 14 years ago. Sensei, G. Gaara, Sakura tried to say, but her voice didn't reach her. She looked around and everyone from her graduation class is sleeping along with the civilians. Only Sakura, Hinata and apparently Sasuke managed to dispel the genjutsu. Sasuke is an arrogant kid, but he isn't without skill. Don't worry, Sakura. I said we planned for this and Naruto will take care of Gaara, Kakashi said. You mean that Dobi knew while me, and Uchiha Elite, didn't? Sasuke asked. This isn't the time, Genin, Kakashi said in a serious voice. Your mission is to help evacuate the civilians to the shelters. Wake up your classmates and separate into teams. Go, Kakashi commanded, and Sakura immediately jumped to her feet while Sasuke was reluctant but nodded as well. Hinata, team up with Zabuza and Haku and start sweeping and treating those you can, Kakashi said, and she nodded. Holy! Kakashi all but yelled when he looked at the arena and saw a massive poof of smoke. But the surprising part was that the smoke wasn't coming from Shukaku but rather from Naruto himself. Cage box when Orochimaru gave the signal to start the invasion, the entire cage box erupted in smoke, blocking the sight of the cages and making the guards take defensive maneuvers to ensure the safety of their leader. Every one of them jumped from the cage box into the nearby roof. What neither of them expected was for the Kazekage's guards to suddenly become force people, each one of them taking a corner of the roof. Each one of the guards was from the sound. All of them went through the same hand seals at the same time. They all shouted, Ninpu, Shishienjin, ninja art, 4 flames formation, and a purple barrier like the one in the arena emerged and trapped the cages inside. Inside the barrier was the Hokage, the Raikage, the Kazekage, and surprisingly there was also Jiraiya, who managed to follow his sensei to the roof and also got trapped inside. What's the meaning of this? The Raikage asked, not pleased with what was happening. Each of the cages was keeping a secure distance from each other. I'm sorry for not warning you Raikage Dono, but I didn't know which side you would take. The Hokage spoke and made the Raikage glare at him. Explain. The Raikage almost shouted. Let's me make the honors Raikage, the Kazekage said before removing his clothes and revealing a smirking Orochimaru. Orochimaru? The Raikage asked, not believing his eyes. How could Orochimaru be posing as the Kazekage and neither he nor his guards noticing it? I am, Orochimaru replied with a twisted smile. Now sensei, let the fun begin, Orochimaru said, licking his lips in anticipation. You fool, it's 3 against 1. You stand no chance, the Raikage replied, getting raised eyebrows from the Hokage and Jiraiya. Kumo and Konoha were never in really good terms since the Hyuga kidnapping. 3. The Hokage asked hopefully. Yes, I will fight with you. Consider it an apology for my father's mistakes, the Raikage said before gathering his voice and shouting, Kumo, we fight for Konoha. Hi, Darui, C and Killer B yelled from outside the barrier before splitting and going to face the sound and sand head on. I appreciate it Raikage Dono, the Hokage said. Perhaps there was hope to an alliance between the two most powerful hidden villages. Yes, now let's skin a snake, the Raikage said smirking. Orochimaru never expected Kumo to join Konoha. That is why, even thought the Raikage was present, Orochimaru still launched his invasion. Naive, Orochimaru said before going trough hand seals. Orochimaru may be a lot of things, but one thing he wasn't was stupid, and as such he was prepared for such odds. Tiger right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow, dog right pointing arrow, dragon. Orochimaru went through the hand seals and clapped his hands. Kuchios. Edo Tensai, Orochimaru said, and almost immediately 4's coffins sprouted from the ground. The coffins slowly opened and revealed 4 shinobis seemingly dead, but in reality they were just waiting for Orochimaru to activate them for the upcoming battle. Sheet. The Raikage, Hokage and Jiraiya all thought at the same time when they saw who was in each of the summoned coffins. Arena Naruto watched in wonder the sheer size of Shukaku. That's one big raccoon, Naruto said. Hayate, Naruto said turning to him. Leave the arena, Naruto said, and he nodded, knowing full well that Naruto was responsible for taking him down and having him there could disturb Naruto's fight. Kurama, juice me, Naruto thought to his partner. Okay, Kurama replied before sending chakra to Naruto. Almost instantly a semi-transparent red cloak enveloped Naruto. His eyes turned blood red with a black vertical slit in the middle, his whiskers marks became more pronounced and his fangs elongated. In Naruto's back 9 chakra tails were swinging wildly as if they didn't have a mind of their own. Naruto placed his hands in a cross sign and said, Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Mass Shadow Clone Jutsu, and in an instant nearly 2,000 clones popped into existence consuming his cloak, each one of them with enough chakra to match a Jonin. There were Narutos as far as the eye could see. Lame joke, spread through the village, your priority is to protect and evacuate the civilians. Provide assistance where you can. Naruto ordered. Hi, all of the clones chorused before jumping away from the arena, leaving their creator to fight the Ikibi. Naruto placed his hands again in a cross sign and said, Enhanced Shadow Clone, and a single clone poofed into existence. This clone was like the rest, however he was reinforced, making him more durable than the others and capable of taking hits before dispelling. Join with Hinata-chan and protect her, he said, and the clone nodded before using the Hirishin to teleport himself to Hinata. Shadow Clone Jutsu, Naruto said, and 4's clones poofed into existence. Kurama, I'll put up a barrier. Can you take control of the Bushins and hold it in place? Naruto asked. Keeping 2,000 shadow clones active, powering an S-rank barrier and still be able to fight a Biju required too much concentration that Naruto wasn't capable of yet. No problem, Kurama replied. In an instant the 4's clones sprinted to the 4 corners of the arena. They went through hand seals at the same time and said, Ninpu, Shishienjin, Ninja Art, 4 flames formation, and a purple barrier erupted, trapping Shukaku and Naruto inside. However, before the whole barrier could close, 3 sand shinobis jumped over the forming barrier and landed inside. They were Sabaku no Tamari, Sabaku no Konkuro, and their Jonin sensei Baki. Damn, Naruto said as he watched the sand shinobi take place near Gaara. This has just got a lot more dangerous. No holding back, Naruto thought before permanently keeping his Ms activated. His hand tightly gripped his fan as he became battle-ready to go off against a Jonin, two Genin and Biju. I'll have to take out Kankuro and Temari first, Naruto thought before releasing his grip on his fan and taking from his storage seals a couple of three-pronged kunai. Naruto watched as the sand shinobi jumped ahead of Shukaku and yet he did nothing to remove them. Looks like Gaara is mostly in control, Naruto thought. He looked up to Shukaku's head and noticed Temari reading her fan and Kankuro unwrapping his bundle revealing a puppet. Great, a puppet user, just my luck, Naruto thought. His odds didn't look so good. He cursed himself for not training his eyes further so he could use the techniques Kurama told him. You made me feel alive, Uzumaki, Shukaku yelled, but it clearly was Gaara's voice. Crazy bastard, Naruto thought as he launched his three-pronged kunai towards the enemy, but was blocked by Baki's kunai. Baki looked at the kunai and was interested in the design as it was different from the others. Until he remembered where he saw them, he remembered the legend that used these kunai to decimate an army. Are these? Baki wondered before he picked the kunai up with his hands and noticed the kanji in the handle. Wrong move, Naruto said before flashing towards the kunai he'd previously thrown. All they saw was a yellow flash before. Naruto appeared behind Baki and slammed a Rasengan into his back and he went flying and crashing into the ground completely out. Naruto ducked under a fan swing from Temari and gave her a punch to the stomach making her buckle in pain. Naruto punched Temari and jumped to the side to avoid a barrage of Sanbon thrown by Kankuro's puppet. Naruto quickly picked another kunai and threw at Kankuro's real body. Kankuro fumbled between his weapons when he saw Naruto throw the same kunai he used to take out his sensei who was Jonin. Kankuro did the only thing he thought and jumped away far enough from the kunai reach. Naruto jumped from the Ikibi as sand was starting to gather around his feet trying to snare him in place. He approached Baki. He was still alive although barely. Naruto picked Baki up and quickly stored him in a stasis seal. What the hell was that? Kankuro asked with fear clearly splashed in his voice. The blonde in front of them just took out their sensei like he was nothing. Idiot, don't you remember history from the academy? Temari asked as she recovered from the blow Naruto delivered her. Seeing Kankuro oblivious face Temari decided to explain. That technique, that yellow flash is the same the Yondaime Hokage used that gave him the name of Yellow Flash. He used a technique of his creation that allowed him to teleport to the kunai he threw and used it to kill almost 1,000 shinobis from Iwa in a flash. He alone won the war, Temari explained and Kankuro turned to the blonde who was busy dodging the sand. I see you know history very well, a voice whispered just behind Temari's ear. She turned her head slightly and was greeted by no one other than Naruto. Kankuro just had enough to blink. He was watching Naruto dodge the sand when suddenly he appeared right behind Temari. How? Temari asked stuttering clearly afraid of Naruto. He possessed a technique that allowed the Yondaime to kill an entire battalion of shinobi in an instant. When I punched you in the stomach I left my mark on you, Naruto simply replied before giving her a quick chop to the back of her head knocking her out. He quickly flashed to the ground with an unconscious Temari and sealed in stasis scroll as well. You bastard. Kankuro growled from the top of the Ikibi before sending his puppet to attack Naruto. You should be grateful I didn't kill your sister, Naruto said in an emotionless voice. Kankuro simply gazed upon Naruto's blood-red eyes and was starting to feel sleepy. Kai, Kankuro said and flared his chakra breaking Naruto's hypnotic eye. Futen, Renkuden, vacuum wind bullet, Shukaku said before slamming his hand in his stomach and expelling a very large ball of compressed wind. The ball itself was bigger than Naruto himself. Naruto gripped his fan and, channeling chakra trough it, he swatted the bullet away making the ground shake from the pressure and power. Naruto jumped to the side to avoid Kankuro's puppet and he noticed that the puppet's blades were filled with poison. I need to take him out so I can focus on Gaara, Naruto thought before he dashed towards Kankuro's puppet. Naruto used his Sharingan and quickly found the chakra strings Kankuro was using to control his puppet. Naruto channeled chakra trough one of his kunai and used it to sever the strings making the puppet fall limp to the ground. Naruto quickly appeared next to the fallen puppet and drove a Rasengan to it shattering it to pieces. Bastard, Kankuro said to Naruto as he lost his best weapon. What can you do now? Naruto asked pissing off Kankuro and making him jump from the Ikibi's head and run straight for Naruto. Naruto smirked when he noticed how easy it was to rattle Kankuro. Kankuro quickly arrived near Naruto and tried a horizontal slash only to Naruto duck. Naruto quickly rose up and trapped his arms, disarming him of his kunai. Naruto grabbed him tightly by the arm and flinged him through the air and slamming him into the ground. Naruto quickly placed his hand into Kankuro and placed a sleeping seal. Once Kankuro was disabled, he sealed him as well inside a stasis scroll. Now that's done, it's only you, Naruto said, eyeing Shukaku. Die! Shukaku yelled as he fired a few more wind bullets that in this case were more like the size of people themselves. Naruto swiftly dodged them and watched as they collided with the barrier, but it didn't even waver. Good, the barrier is holding even though it's powered by clones, Naruto thought. Naruto analyzed Shukaku and noticed he was very slow. He hadn't moved since he was released, so Naruto would take that as an advantage. Naruto took out a single shuriken. He placed it on his pointer finger in his right hand. Naruto molded wind chakra and slowly expelled it to the shuriken. Soon enough the shuriken started spinning and around it the wind started spinning as well, creating a circular saw. Shuriken wind blade, Naruto said and threw the shuriken. The shuriken went flying with impressive speed towards Shukaku, who remained in place as his mobility was inexistent. The shuriken arrived near Shukaku and swiftly and without much trouble it cut right through his right arm, severing it completely and making it fall to the ground. The arm fell limply to the ground and started crumpling away until it remained nothing but sand on the ground. Although Shukaku just had his left arm severed, he didn't seem to be in any type of pain. You entertain me, Uzumaki, Shukaku yelled, and the sand above Shukaku's head started moving and something could be seen popping out. Naruto narrowed his eyes to the figure emerging and saw that it was Gaara himself. Gaara placed his hands in the tiger seal and said, "Play possum jutsu," and promptly fell asleep. Gaara leaned forward and his body went completely limp. Just as Gaara fell asleep, Shukaku's eyes glowed yellow and stayed like that, showing that it was Shukaku who was now in control. I'm free. I am going to kill you and then destroy everything, Shukaku yelled as he was happy to be free once again. He looked down and saw Naruto staring at him. Seeing Naruto, Shukaku immediately went into action, trying to crush the blonde and leave the barrier so he could have fun. Futen, Renkuden, vacuum wind bullet, Shukaku said and started expelling compressed wind bullets towards Naruto, who was forced to start evasive maneuvers. Naruto watched very carefully as they hit the barrier. He couldn't allow Shukaku to roam free through the village or he would destroy it. Kaiten, Goryuka no Jutsu, Great Dragon Fire Technique, Naruto said and unleashed a big fire dragon towards Shukaku. Naruto swinged his fan and empowered the flames, making them wider and bigger. The flames were almost the size of Shukaku himself. Shukaku let out a roar and the flames were dispersed into nothing. Shukaku flexed his tail and tried to squash Naruto, but he jumped to the side to avoid it. The tail regressed back, but this time it stayed just above Shukaku's mouth. Suddenly black and blue chakra could be seen floating in the air and gathering around Shukaku's mouth. The chakra started gathering and compressing itself in ball just outside of Shukaku's mouth. Is that what I think it is? Naruto asked when he watched the ball of chakra form itself, very much like Naruto used his Rasengan. It's a Bijudama Biju bomb, and I don't think your clone-powered barrier can withstand that, Kurama said. Even though Shukaku was the weakest of the 9, a Biju bomb is still strong. Let's see if this weapon truly lives to its name, Naruto said before gripping his fan tight. Shukaku stopped gathering chakra in the ball and suddenly fired it with tremendous speed. Naruto watched the purple ball coming towards him. Naruto grabbed his fan and placed it in front of him, his right hand grabbing the hilt while his left hand grabbed the other end. The fan was acting like a shield in front of Naruto. Geishi, reflection, Naruto said just before the bomb hit the fan. The Biju bomb collided with the fan and at first nothing happened, but suddenly the bomb exploded, but, instead of blowing Naruto, it was completely reflected towards Shukaku. The amount of pressure being put in the fan made Naruto kneel and ground beneath crack, but he was able to withstand the bomb and the force of the explosion was sent towards Shukaku. Naruto placed the fan in his back and cleaned a bit of sweat that was dripping from the side of his face. That went well, Naruto thought. Now you believe what I said about the fan, Kurama said in a sarcastic voice. Yes. Now let's end this, Naruto replied and watched as the smoke cleared and revealed a fully scorched Shukaku with his right arm missing as well. Naruto concentrated and focused his chakra. Suddenly right beneath Shukaku golden chains erupted from the ground and pinned him to the ground. Shukaku was fully trapped, he had chains wrapped around his tail, mouth and the majority of his body making him unable to do a single movement. Rat. Ox. Dog. Boar. Naruto went through the hand signs and clapped his hands together. He slammed his right hand on the ground and kanji started flowing out of it and going towards Shukaku and forming a ring around him. 5-point demonic suppression seal, Naruto said, and the kanji started glowing. Shukaku yelled in pain as his chakra was being forced back into the seal. All the shinobis stopped their fighting and looked at the arena where Shukaku was howling in pain. You are not going anywhere, Naruto said. Naruto reinforced the chains as he could feel Shukaku trying to break them free and get away from the seal. Shukaku's form started to waver and the sand slowly started crumpling and flowing back into Gaara. A few seconds later and there was nothing but a ball of sand floating in the air. The ball of sand was becoming smaller and smaller by the second when suddenly all the sand disappeared and Gaara fell to the ground completely unconscious. Naruto approached Gaara and saw his new seal in Gaara's neck. It formed a complete circle around Gaara's main seal. Naruto looked carefully at him and noticed a few irregularities. The main seal had no suppressive seals in it and no safe hatch. At this point Gaara's seal was nothing more than an advanced storage seal. This is why Gaara is so unstable, Naruto thought before approaching him and also placing in a stasis scroll putting him with his team. Naruto took a few deep breaths and dropped the barrier while shifting his eyes towards the roof where the cage's battle was taking place. With Hinata. Hinata had just received orders from Kakashi and went to join forces with Zabuza so they could bring the pain to the invading forces. Hinata quickly located Zabuza and Haku and jumped towards them. We have orders, Zabuza, Hinata said as she watched Zabuza behead a sound shinobi with his Kubikiribocho. Which are? Zabuza asked. We are to group up and start sweeping the streets while evacuating and providing protection to the civilians. When the civilians are evacuated we are to launch a counter-attack, Hinata explained. Let's go then, Zabuza said as he placed his blade to his back. They were about to leave when they saw a yellow flash. They narrowed their eyes and saw Naruto just arrived near them. Naruto-kun. Hinata asked, surprised to see him. What are you doing here? She asked. I'm a reinforced clone. Boss sent me to team up with all of you and provide protection to you as well, Naruto explained and they all nodded. They all withdrew their weapons. Naruto picked a couple of three-pronged kunai, Haku took out Senbon and Hinata picked her daggers. They quickly left the arena and made their way towards the middle of the village indicating the evacuation paths to the civilians. They were about to leave when a group of 10 sound shinobis jumped in front of them. Naruto quickly sensed their chakra levels and they were ordinary chunins. What do we have where? The obvious sound leader asked. A jonin and a couple of kids, he said while the rest of the crew laughed. Obviously these sound shinobi weren't watching the chunin exams or they would have seen just what these kids could do. It's time for the flash to resurface, Naruto said and got confused looks from Zabuza and Haku. He smirked and threw one of his special kunai towards the enemy. They all laughed when the kunai didn't hit anyone and simple landed harmlessly on the ground in the middle of them. Don't blink, Naruto said to his team and disappeared in a yellow flash. All Zabuza was able to see was a yellow flash. Naruto disappeared from view and when Zabuza saw him once again all of the sound shinobi fell to the ground dead, their throats slashed. That was. Zabuza said but trailed off as he pieced together who Naruto really was. You are the son of the Kiroi Senku, Yellow Flash, aren't you? Zabuza asked but the answer seemed pretty obvious. Yes, my father was Namikaze Minato, Konoha's Kiroi Senku and the Yondaime Hokage and also Uchiha Madara's son. Naruto explained and got disbelief looks from Zabuza and Haku who had her eyes widened. I'm done trying to figure you out. Zabuza said laughing. Tell me, how long can you use the technique? Zabuza asked. It was a pain in the ass to create the seals. I can use it since I became genin, Naruto explained. Unbelievable, Zabuza said while shaking his head in disbelief. Let's continue, Zabuza said and they grouped together and dashed once again off the streets. Hinata, Naruto said turning to her, use your Byakugan and see where we are needed. This section is cleared, Naruto explained, and Hinata nodded before activating her Byakugan without any seals. She gasped to what she saw. The academy is under siege, she said, and got disbelief looks from Naruto. The academy? He asked incredulously. What about the barrier? He asked. There is no barrier. There's sound and sand shinobi trying to force entry, but Iruka-sensei and couple other chunins are holding them off, she explained. Let's hurry then. I can't teleport all of you with the Hirishin since I'm only a clone and we will take too long if we walk. Naruto said and got confused looks from the rest of the team. If he couldn't transport them and they couldn't walk, what else were they going to do? This might feel a bit uncomfortable, Naruto said before activating his Kamui and sucking Zabuza, Haku and Hinata into it. He quickly disappeared as well, leaving no trace of either of them. Academy at the academy things weren't looking pretty. Iruka and the other teachers were trying to hold off the enemy until shinobi could arrive, but they wouldn't last much longer. The chunin that was powering the barrier was tricked when a sand shinobi hinged into a Konoha shinobi and infiltrated the barrier, killing the one powering it. The students were all scared. The enemy managed to collapse the tunnels leading to the bunkers, and since the barrier was down, the only keeping them alive were the teachers that were battling fiercely to protect the lives of their students by preventing the enemy from entering the academy. Iruka, this doesn't look good, one of the teachers said. He was clearly tired, he was sweating from every place and was breathing very hard. Even thought he wasn't fatally injured, he was filled with small cuts and bruises from their fight. We can't do much. We must hold it until reinforcements arrive, Iruka said. Iruka was also running low on chakra. Even though he was quite skilled for a chunin, a couple of chunins couldn't fend off 15 sand chunins indefinitely. Just give up. You can't win, the obvious team leader said as he watched the teachers breathing heavily. They already managed to kill a couple of teachers, but these two were proving rather difficult. They were managing to keep them at bay by launching long-range jutsus and weapons. Iruka, behind you, the other teacher yelled. Looks like the exhaustion was finally catching up to them as a sand chunin managed to sneak up on Iruka. Iruka turned his head to see who was behind him when he noticed a kunai going for his throat. Iruka resigned to his fate as he couldn't do anything more to dodge, his chakra reserves were empty and he was tired and running out of weapons. He had his eyes closed and was expecting the pain when he heard, Reikiri. Iruka opened his eyes to see a hand enveloped in lightning piercing right through the sand shinobi's chest. The shinobi hit the ground dead, he didn't even scream. He was dead the moment Naruto pierced him. Naruto, Iruka said stuttering. Don't worry Iruka-sensei. We will take care of the rest, Naruto said before space seemed to bend and from his eyes popped the rest of his team, Zabuza, Haku and Hinata. What the hell was that brat? Zabuza asked, feeling a bit disorientated. A space-time ninjutsu similar to my Hirishin. Take care of them while I gather everyone inside the academy and put up a barrier, Naruto said, and the rest of his team dashed to the remaining 14 shinobis. In less than 5 minutes every single one of them was dead. Between Hinata's gentle fist, Haku's Senbon and Zabuza's sword no one stood a chance. My god. Iruka said stuttering as he watched Hinata fight and sweep the enemy as if they were nothing more than ants. Hinata seemed to be dancing and flowing through the attacks of the enemy. Her Byakugan allowed her to pinpoint and track each enemy. She only needed to touch the enemy once, she honored the traditional style named as the gentle fist. One simple touch and the enemy would fall to the ground dead. Hinata had many to accomplish this. She could open the gate of death making their heart explode, she could crack the chakra core destroying the chakra network killing the enemy, or if she didn't have access to such places she would use her Jukin with lightning and infusing it through the enemy's network, frying it and killing the enemy. She truly was a goddess of death. Iruka-sensei, what happened to the barrier? Naruto asked, breaking Iruka of his thoughts. The barrier seals he created weren't supposed to come crashing very easily. It would require a powerful attack to destroy it. One sand shinobi hinged into a Konoha one and infiltrated the academy. He also managed to collapse the evacuation tunnels, Iruka explained. I understand. It's very dangerous to evacuate so many students through the middle of the streets, so I'll put another barrier up, Naruto explained, and Iruka sighed in relief. It looked like his students were going to pull through. Zabuza, hold them off while I replace the barrier, Naruto said, and he nodded before his team took defensive stances watching for any hostile shinobi while Naruto was doing his work. Naruto noticed all the seal tags in the all were destroyed and he needed to create new ones. He quickly took out a few empty tags from his storage seals and started writing seals. Iruka just watched in fascination the speed and quality at which Naruto drew the seals. It obviously proved that Naruto was very skilled in fuinjutsu. Naruto quickly finished the tags and Iruka examined them. Each kanji was perfectly drawn, not a speck of imperfection could be seen. It almost looked like a work of art. Get inside, Naruto said, and Iruka went to collect to the other teacher that was unconscious but not severely hurt. Once inside, Naruto made a shadow clone and he made his way towards the outside of the academy. He slammed the tag on the wall and said, "Four-corner barrier," and yellowish barrier erupted completely covering the academy grounds. Naruto's clone sat down in lotus position and started concentrating to increase the power of the barrier. The reinforced clone on the outside on the barrier said, "Iruka-sensei, you are safe now. We will continue to look through the village." Naruto turned away to join up with his team and moved to another sector of the village when they saw a big explosion that rose into the skies. Explosion site. Minutes earlier, B was running through the streets trying his best to help out where he could. Darui and C teamed up with Omoi and Karen and went to grab Yugito at the infirmary. B quickly looked at the horizon and noticed a three-headed snake breaking through the walls of Konoha and starting to wreak havoc through the village. The shinobis were throwing jutsu after jutsu but nothing seemed to work. "Push him out of the village," one of the shinobis yelled as they threw explosive kunai towards the snake, but that didn't even screech the snake as he continued on her path. They were quickly running out of options when they heard what it seemed to be someone rapping, and a lame one at that. "You are going down, fool. You fool, because I'm the mighty killer B." B rapped while running trough and jumping through the roofs and heading to face the snake. "I'll take care of that worm," B said before fully transforming into his Biju. There, standing in the middle of Konoha, was the Hachibi. B quickly wrapped the snake with his tentacles and threw at the air so she couldn't do any more destruction. All of his 8 tails quickly bent over his head, ending just above his mouth. Black and blue chakra was seen gathering around it and compressing it to form a perfect sphere. "Bijudama, Biju bomb," B said and shot the ball towards the snake that was in the air. The moment the ball collided, it immediately exploded in a show of fire and smoke. Seconds later, as the smoke was starting to clear, there was nothing remaining of the snake. He didn't know if she was obliterated or just went back to her real, but at this point it didn't matter. Konoha was safe for now. "Thanks for the help, B-san," a Konoha shinobi said before picking up a injured comrade and going to the hospital. Konoha's walls. One of Naruto's clones was running through the village clearing shinobis and helping civilians where he could. Due to him being a standard clone, even with his kamui, it was risky to engage in taijutsu, but he could always rely on ninjutsu and he was really good at it. "Push them back." Naruto heard a shinobi yelling and made his way towards him to provide as much help as he could. Even if he was a clone, at least he could be bait for slowing the enemy down. He arrived at the destination and saw a group of Konoha shinobis throwing jutsu and weapons trying to delay a group of about 200 sand shinobis led by the Kazekage into the village. However, the group just kept throwing wind jutsus and having the Kazekage in there made sure they weren't harmed due to his gold sand dust. It wasn't looking good as the enemy kept coming. If help didn't arrive, it would be a massacre. Naruto arrived at their location and quickly surveyed the area looking for anyone he might know. His eyes landed on Anko. "Anko, what's happening?" Naruto asked. She looked around to find the annoying blonde. "Naruto, what are you doing here?" Anko asked. "Are you the reinforcements we asked?" She asked, hoping that the only reinforcements that came weren't Naruto alone. "I wasn't sent by anyone. I'm just a clone. Boss is taking care of Shukaku at the stadium," Naruto explained, and Anko stared dumbly at him before scowling. "Just my luck, a fucking clone," Anko said. "If you explained the situation, maybe I could help," Naruto said flatly, trying not to cause many problems, especially in the middle of an invasion. "Very simple. The Kazekage is leading 200 shinobis into the village and we aren't able to slow them down," Anko said and stared at Naruto, waiting for his miraculous answer. "I think I have just the jutsu for this," Naruto said, smirking, making Anko raise an eyebrow. "But I'm just a clone, so it will take a couple of minutes to prepare. Can you hold them off until then?" Naruto asked. "I hope it's worth it," Anko said before yelling, "Hold off for a couple of minutes more." "Hi," the shinobis that were with her yelled. They were very few in number compared to an overwhelming force of 200 trained shinobis. Naruto sat down in lotus position and clapped his hands together as if praying. He slowly drove them apart a few inches from each other and sparks started flying between them. He continued concentrating and after a few minutes the sparks gathered in a blue sphere that was shining. Okay Anko, it's ready, Naruto said and Anko turned around to see the jutsu. That's it, a small blue sphere, Anko said not believing her eyes. So much work just for that. No faith, Naruto said smirking and launched the ball into the sky. The moment the ball hit the cloud level it suddenly expanded in a bright flash of white. Everyone stopped and looked up to see what was happening. Just as the light died down the clouds started gathering and sky was getting darker and darker by the moment. Thunders could easily be heard emanating the clouds. Witness my best lightning jutsu, Naruto said and everyone was focused in him. Naruto channeled lightning chakra to his hand and it started sparkling. He sent a beam into the sky and the thunders seemed to join and gather into a single massive one. The Kazekage was watching the skies very carefully and when he noticed the dragon he figured it wasn't going to be good for them. Take cover, the Kazekage yelled at his forces but it was already too late. Raiten, Kirin, Naruto said and his dragon roared his way towards the sand shinobi. The Kazekage tried to block with his sand but it was far too slow. He didn't even have time to blink as the dragon disappeared in a flash and the ground where they stood exploded. Everything was ripped apart, trees, stones, even the earth itself was destroyed and where once stood the mighty Kazekage and his 200 shinobis was now nothing more than a 100-meter wide crater. Anko and the other shinobis didn't manage to see what exactly happened. All they saw was a flash of light and the ground exploding. The dust cleared and there was no one remaining alive. The ones that survived the initial explosion were simply electrocuted and left in ashes due to the power of the thunder. Holy shit Gaki, Anko yelled shaking his shoulders and her eyes widened to the size of dinner plates. The reaction of the rest of the shinobis was pretty much the same. They were all busting their asses to keep the enemy away and Naruto arrives, fires a very powerful lightning jutsu and it's all over, just like that. I told you to have faith, Naruto said panting. Even though the jutsu didn't take much chakra the concentration necessary to use the jutsu was very high for a simple clone. I'm dispelling now, Naruto said and Anko nodded dumbly. So what now? One of the shinobis asked. With the cages Edo Tensai. A forbidden technique that summons a soul from the pure world to the world of the living, impure world, in order to do the biting of the summoner. Besides moral ramifications this technique is considered forbidden because it costs a human life to anchor the soul to the world. This technique was invented the Senju Tobarama, the Nadaime Hokage although the reasons to why he did are still unknown. The moment the four's coffins opened the shinobi inside were instantly recognized. They were all legends and powerful in their own way. In the first coffin was a tall man with tanned skin, dark eyes and waist-length black hair typically styled in a center-parted fringe that framed his face. His attire took the form of the standard shinobi dress of his era, consisting of dark red traditional armor, similar to that of samurai, worn over a simple black suit. This armor was constructed from numerous metal plates, formed into multiple protective guards along his body, in particular, chest, shoulders, thighs and forearms. Each collar of his shoulder guards bore the Senju symbol emblazoned on them. This man was none other than Senju Hashirama the Shodaime Hokage himself and the original shinobi no kami, god of shinobi. In the second coffin was a woman, she had long, bright red hair and large, pupilless eyes. She wore an elaborate, high-collared kimono with the Uzushiogakure symbol on the back of the obi which was tied around her waist. Her hair was arranged in buns with hair pins in them and 3 clips in the front. She also wore a dark shade of red lipstick and had a violet-colored diamond mark on her forehead. She also wore tags with kanji written on them in her hair decals. She also carried a huge red scroll on her back, similar to Jiraiya. She was Uzumaki Mito, Konoha's Benihime, Red Princess, and the wife of Senju Hashirama. In the third coffin was a tall man, fair-skinned man with white, shaggy hair, dark-colored eyes and 3 red markings on his face, one under each of his eyes, and one on his chin. In most cases, he wore the wartime attire, armor emblazoned with the Senju symbol worn over a simple black suit, with a distinctive white fur collar. This armor was constructed from numerous blue metal plates, formed into multiple protective guards along his body. In particular, chest, waist, shoulders and upper arms. This clothing was accompanied by sandals and a hapuri engraved with the Konoha emblem, in the place of the more traditional forehead protector. He was Senju Tobirama, Konoha's Suiro, water dragon, and the Nadaime Hokage of Konoha. In the last coffin was another woman. She had a slender, but feminine build, fair skin, blue eyes, crimson hair with strands that framed both sides of her. She was wearing the traditional black anbu pants with white tape around the ankles. Around her chest she had anbu chest plate above simple black suit. She had gloves in each arm that covered her entire arm almost reaching her shoulders. On her back, a 28 inches long black katana with red hilt. She was Uzumaki, former Senju Kushina, Konoha's aka Noshi, Red Death, wife of the Yondaime Hokage but most importantly mother of Uzumaki Naruto. This isn't good, the Hokage muttered under his breath and the Raikage and Jiraiya couldn't help but to agree. After all, standing in front of them were Force Cage-level shinobis not to mention Orochimaru himself, and the fact that being an Edo Tensei provides the shinobi with limitless chakra and immortality didn't help much. Where am I? Kushina asked as she surveyed her surroundings. The last thing she remembered was saying goodbye to her son. Edo Tensei. Tobirama asked out loud, snapping Kushina from her thoughts. That man brought us back with my forbidden technique. Ironic, Tobirama said. Edo Tensei, Kushina thought as she watched who she was going to fight against. It was a bulky man with blonde hair, so she assumed he would Akumo Nin, Jiraiya and Sarutobi Hiruzen. Hiruzen seemed older than what she remembered, so it must have been some time. Hiruzen, Kushina called out, getting his attention. How long has it been? She asked. 14 years, he replied solemnly. How is Naruto doing? She asked. She felt bad for leaving Naruto alone and leaving him with such burden, but there wasn't any other choice at the time. Even though the civilians made his life a nightmare, he still turned out an splendid shinobi. You would be proud of him, the Hokage said with a small smile. He even found love, the Hokage said. That's good. Grandmother always said that to support the hate of being a Jinchuriki I should fill myself with love, right? She asked, turning towards Senju Mito, who was quiet observing the reed head. Kushina-chan? She asked, not believing her eyes. Her little girl grew so much since the last time she saw her. It was a shame she was already dead and apparently she left a son behind. Good to see you again, grandmother, she said smiling. Ah, take that, Tobirama. My line continued on while you were always brooding around, Hashirama yelled, pointing towards his brother. Tisk, Tobirama replied, crossing his arms. Orochimaru remained quiet while they were interacting and found it very interesting that Kushina called Mito her grandmother. Care to explain why you called Mito your grandmother, Kushina-chan? Orochimaru asked. Why should I answer to you, pedophile? Kushina replied. Orochimaru got pissed and forced his control on her, Edo Tensei, forcing her to answer all of his questions. My true name is Senju Kushina. I'm the daughter of Senju Tsunade and Kato Dan, she replied in a monotone. If Orochimaru was surprised, he didn't show it, but he always thought that Tsunade's daughter had died. Tsunade only had one daughter and she died, Orochimaru replied. He was getting very interested. My death was faked to stop the CRA from taking place. With me dead and Tsunade leaving the village, we were both safe, Kushina replied, and Orochimaru smirked. Naruto was the perfect vessel, the strength of the Senju body with the power of the Sharingan. Delicious, he shall be mine, Orochimaru thought. It really was a bad decision on your part, brother, Hashirama said to his brother regarding the CRA law that was created by the Nadaime Hokage. It was always for the betterment of the village, Tobirama replied. I don't doubt that, but you are too distant and cold. You are always brooding around like the Uchihas. You need a strong woman to straighten you up, Hashirama said, and Tobirama remained impassive. Maybe you should set him up with someone, Mito-chan, Hashirama said, turning to his beloved wife Senju Mito. She didn't age a day he last saw her, and her beauty remained unparalleled, to him at least. We are all dead, Hashirama-kun, Mito replied with a deadpan expression. My bad, Hashirama replied, chuckling and scratching the back of his head in embarrassment. The Hokage, Raikage and Jiraiya were all watching the interaction with fascination. It saddened the old Hokage's heart to see his former teachers and some of the greatest shinobi of the leaf brought back from the dead to serve under a despicable man. I should have killed him when I had the chance, the Hokage thought with shame. All the evil Orochimaru had brought could have been stopped if he had been strong back then. Enough talk. Kill them all, Orochimaru commanded, and they all took their stances. Hashirama and Tobirama crouched and took their taijutsu stance. Mito picked the scroll up and Kushina took out her sword. The Konoha defenders braced themselves for what was coming. How do you want to do this? The Raikage asked. 5 shinobis against 3 hardly seemed fair to anyone. 5 against 3 doesn't add up very well, Jiraiya said. Don't count me in. I'll just watch for now, Orochimaru said, smirking. I'll take my former's teachers, Jiraiya, you take Mito since she fights with seals, and the Raikage will take Kushina. The Hokage explained and they both nodded. Raikage dono, don't underestimate Kushina, she almost as fast as you, the Hokage explained, and he rose an eyebrow. He knew that Kushina was a very powerful kunoichi, but fast he will have to see. Hokage's battle #an. I'll refer to Hashirama and Tobirama as Hokages and the third as Hiruzen. Get ready, Hiruzen. We can't control our bodies, but we will try and help as we go, Hashirama said. It's a shame to see you in this condition. As Sarutobi Hiruzen, Sandaime Hokage of Konohagakure, I shall defeat you both, the Hokage said as he removed his Hokage's robes, revealing the armor underneath. A full-body black suit with mesh armor underneath and steel plates in the arms. The Hokages suddenly started running, heading towards Hiruzen. Hashirama arrived first and tried a spin kick, making Hiruzen crouch to avoid it. Hashirama continued his attacks with a few punches, but Hiruzen blocked them all. Hiruzen crouched and tried to sweep his legs, making Hashirama jump up and back. As Hashirama was pushed back, Tobirama jumped into the fray. Tobirama quickly arrived near Hiruzen and jumped over him. Tobirama quickly turned and threw a set of punches, trying to catch Hiruzen off guard. Tobirama jumped up and tried a drop kick that Hiruzen caught. Hiruzen spinned and threw Tobirama into the air. Even in his old age, Hiruzen was still considered the most powerful man in the village, and this was the proof of it. Managing to hold your own in taijutsu against 2 Hokages at his old age was no easy feat. My turn now, Hiruzen said, and the Hokages braced themselves for his attack. Hiruzen went through a couple of hand seals and said, Kaden Karyu Enden, Fire Dragon Bullet, and sent a torrent of fire that engulfed the Hokages. The flames were covering completely the Hokages, but they remained still. A benefit of the Edo Tensei is his immortal body. Hiruzen, seeing that his technique wasn't having effect, he poured more chakra into it, turning the flames with white hot. Tobirama, seeing the spike in Hiruzen's chakra, flashed trough hand seals. Sweeten, Sujinheki, water wall, Tobirama said, and started expelling water through his mouth that formed a wall around both Hokages, cancelling the fire attack. Sweeten, Sushoha, exploding water wave, Tobirama said, but instead of using his chakra to create the water like normal users, he simply gathered the moist in the atmosphere and used it to power his attack. The water started swirling around him until he unleashed a massive tsunami heading towards Hiruzen. Doten, Doryuaheki, earth wall, Hiruzen said before spitting out dirt from his mouth. The moment the dirt hit the floor, it sprouted into the air, forming a wall to shield him from the impeding tsunami. As the water calmed down, Hiruzen went through another set of hand seals. Doten, Doryuden, earth dragon bullet, and a dragon's head rose from the ground and started shooting multiple globs of earth towards the Hokages. Kaden, Karyuden no Jutsu, Fire Dragon Bomb, Hiruzen said, and combined the earth bullets with fire, turning them into almost lava. The Yoten lava style bloodline allows the user to merge earth and fire chakra to create Yoten chakra and thus use lava attacks. However, anyone can combine the elements externally, however the power is significantly lower. The Hokages started evasive maneuvers to evade the bullets as they were running towards Hiruzen. Hashirama quickly arrived near Hiruzen and both engaged in taijutsu battle. As the shinobi code dictates, use every advantage possible, and Hashirama set to do so. He dipped his feet in water and threw it into Hiruzen's eyes, blinding him momentarily. Hashirama took advantage of his blindness and unleashed a combo of punches and kicks, trying to end Hiruzen permanently. They couldn't control themselves, so they couldn't stop from using low blows. Tobirama jumped into the fight as well. However, Hiruzen didn't go down as easily as they thought. Using the momentum at which he received the punches and kicks, he discreetly placed explosive tags on both Hokages. He quickly regained his sense again and broke the taijutsu fight by planting a feet into Hashirama's chest and sending him flying. Kai, Hiruzen said with his right hand in the tiger seal and both explosive tags detonated blowing up Hashirama's leg and Tobirama's arm. Now this would have been enough to kill any shinobi but the Edo Tensei allowed the body to regenerate. Hiruzen watched in amazement as the leg and arm that were destroyed reformed themselves as if nothing happened. Mokuten. Jukai Koten deep forest creation, Hashirama said, and trees started emerging from the ground ripping through everything. The tiles, the earth wall, nothing stopped the onslaught of the trees. Hiruzen was forced to take evasive maneuvers but in the end the trees caught him and snared him by the ankles and arms. Hiruzen forced himself to move under his confinement and bit his thumb drawing blood. He stretched and placed his hands near a branch of a tree. Kuchio's no jutsu, summoning technique, Hiruzen said, and smoke erupted from where he placed his hand. As the smoke cleared it showed a figure. His body and tail was covered by white fur which protrudes from his sleeves and pants. He has long white hair that reached into his back and long sideburns and a goatee. He wears a black suit with mesh armor underneath, over which he wears a sleeveless, kimono shirt with white, fur trimmings and markings reminiscent of tiger stripes on it which is held closed by a sash. He was Enma the Monkey King and boss summon of the Monkey Clan. Orochimaru. I warned you, Enma said watching Hiruzen trapped in the trees. Let's end him now. Transform into the adamantine staff, Hiruzen said. Hi, Enma said and jumped into a branch and said, Henge, Kongunyoic transformation, adamantine staff. Enma was engulfed in smoke and when it cleared Enma was no longer a monkey but a staff. The staff quickly crushed the trees and freed Hiruzen from his prison before resting in his hands as he took a defensive stance. Jiraiya vs Senju Mito. Jiraiya gulped as he watched Mito remove the scroll from her back. After all, Mito was an Uzumaki and their sealing techniques weren't to be underestimated in the least. Uzumaki Mito did defeat the Kyuubi when Madara attacked at the Valley of the End and sealed him inside of her without dying. Senju Mito was one of the few combat sealers. As long as she had chakra, her possibilities in battle were endless, and since Jiraiya was a seal master himself, he knew very well the foe he was up against. I wonder if I should use Sage Mode, Jiraiya considered and thought. Jiraiya decided that he shouldn't allow Mito to do anything and rushed her, engaging in taijutsu. Mito, seeing Jiraiya running towards her, quickly placed the scroll on her back and took a defensive stance. Jiraiya arrived near her and threw a set of punches that she easily blocked. Jiraiya tried to sweep her legs, making her jump. While in the air, Jiraiya tried to punch her but she grabbed his arm and supporting herself she spinned mid-air and delivered a spin kick to Jiraiya. Jiraiya stumbled back but quickly regained his position. He nursed his neck before going towards her once again. He quickly arrived near and threw a right hook. Her attention was focused on his right arm, opening her defenses for Jiraiya's left hand to slip through and hit her, sending her flying to the ground. She got up as if nothing had happened and they both rushed each other once again. The moment they arrived near each other, Mito jumped over him. She placed her right hand on Jiraiya's back, applying a seal and jumping away from him. Jiraiya didn't know what happened and as such discarded this skirmish as unimportant until he saw Mito place her right hand in tiger sign. Fuinjutsu, electric seal activate, Mito said, and the seal on Jiraiya's back glowed and started sending electric shocks through Jiraiya's body, making him buckle in pain until he exploded in a poof of smoke. I figured the moment you touched me you applied some seal, Jiraiya said, rising from the ground. Ninpu. Kabari Senbon, hair needles, Jiraiya said, and his hair extended before starting to fire hundreds of hair needles towards Mito, who remained in place. Mito spread her hands from each other. From her sleeves emerged 2 tags, one for each hand. Barrier technique, shock absorption seal, and a golden barrier appeared in front of her, easily blocking all of the senbons. The moment they hit the barrier, it didn't even waver or buckle from the pressure. Jiraiya, seeing his attacks was useless, stopped launching senbon and decided to try another approach. Kaden, Diendant giant fire blast, Jiraiya said before flashing through hand seals and sending a wall of fire towards Mito, who remained impassive to any attack Jiraiya threw. Mito took out sealing tags, however these seemed slightly different. Barrier technique, chakra absorption seal, Mito said, and what seemed to be a black hole erupted between her arms and engulfed the fire attacks, leaving no trace of it. She can absorb chakra as well. Damn, Jiraiya muttered out loud. Mito really was a fearsome opponent. She managed to block a physical and chakra-powered attacks with nothing more than ink and paper. Mito quickly opened her big scroll and turned it towards Jiraiya, who raised an eyebrow in confusion. Bakurugeki Dragon Bomb, Mito said before a seal from the scroll started glowing. Suddenly from the seal a massive torrent of fire shaped in the form of a dragon's head erupted and headed towards Jiraiya, scorching everything on its path. Doten, Doryuaheki, Earth Wall, Jiraiya said, and wall of earth rose from the ground to shield Jiraiya from the incoming flames. That fire attack had a very large reach and Jiraiya wouldn't be able to dodge in time. The flames connected with the wall, but it was strong enough to withstand the pressure. Can't believe I'm getting my ass kicked by someone who isn't even using ninjutsu, Jiraiya thought, shaking his head in shame. Doten, Yomi Numa, Underworld Swamp, Jiraiya said as the ground beneath Mito suddenly liquefied, making her fall into the swamp and burying half of her body. The earth quickly hardened, trapping her. Jiraiya suddenly appeared above her and yelled, Rasengan, as he drove a blue chakra sphere right through Mito's chest, destroying everything around it, even the ground. Since Mito had her arms trapped in the swamp, she couldn't block or dodge the attack. Jiraiya jumped back and was watching the cloud of dust starting to settle. He narrowed his eyes as he watched Mito's chest starting to reform. A few seconds later and it was as if nothing had ever happened. Jiraiya was so focused in watching Mito reform that he didn't notice three of Mito's cage bushes suddenly surround him, making a triangle around him. They all pulled a tag that seemed to float in the air. Sealing trap. Chakra draining seal. All of the three clones shouted in union, and triangular, red-colored barrier erupted, trapping Jiraiya inside and starting to drain his chakra. She's stealing my chakra. And fast, Jiraiya thought as he was starting to feel the chakra drainage. If he kept inside he would be out of chakra in mere minutes. Jiraiya started forming a Rasengan but noticed that it was being absorbed as well. He needed to create a larger Rasengan and use it quickly so Mito didn't have time to absorb it. Udama Rasengan, giant Rasengan, Jiraiya said before making a Rasengan twice as big as the normal. He quickly slammed the Rasengan on the ground and the ground exploded upwards, breaking the barrier and the clones as well. Jiraiya cleaned a bit of sweat and jumped back to gain some distance from Mito. 2 halves, 11:51 p.m. Atharva Patil. Rakage vs Kushina. Who are you? Kushina asked. Why do you want to know? The Rakage asked, generously surprised from that question. Even though I hold no love for Kumo, I wish to know the name of my opponent, Kushina explained. I'm a Yondaime Rakage, the Rakage said, and Kushina nodded. Shall we begin? Kushina said before gripping her sword and making the Rakage smirk. Perhaps this wouldn't such a bad fight after all. They both dashed towards each other. The Rakage had yet to activate his lightning armor as he wanted to get a feel for Kushina's power, so he kept at elite Jonin's speeds. Arubo, elbow. The Rakage said as he reached near Kushina. He flexed his elbow to hit her. Kushina swiftly ducked under him and brought the hilt of her sword upwards, slamming it against the Rakage's chin and planting a kick to his chest, sending him flying. Dragon dive, Kushina said before flexing her blade and pointing her towards the Rakage. Kushina charged her body with Charka before exploding towards the Rakage at very high speeds, but the Rakage wasn't the fastest man alive for nothing and managed to deflect it, although barely. Rakage, seeing Kushina so up close, charged at her and said, Rariato, lariat, and tried to slam his right arm into Kushina's neck, destroying hit. Kushina simple bent her body backwards and allowed the arm to pass above her without touching her. The moment the Rakage's arm had safely passed above Kushina, she quickly rose up once again. She jumped into the air and using the Rakage's arm as leverage, she snared his head between her legs. She tilted down, placing her hands on the ground for leverage once again, and slammed the Rakage into the ground hard and jumped back to gain some distance. Enough of this child's play, the Rakage said before his chakra spiked and his body was enveloped in a blue cloak that was sparkling with electricity everywhere. This was the Rakage's most powerful technique, the Raiden no Yoroi, lightning armor. A technique that, by channeling lightning chakra through the synapses and the external body, it improves the user's reaction time, overall speed and defenses. Kushina, seeing her opponent using the fabled Raiden no Yoroi, knew she needed something that allowed her to keep up with what will be his new speed. Her husband managed to avoid A's fastest strike by using his Hirishin, but she didn't have that at her disposal. Kushina began focusing and channeling wind chakra through her external body. Futon no Yoroi, wind armor, Kushina said. By surrounding her body with wind chakra, she can cut down the wind resistance, increasing her overall speed. However, this technique doesn't protect her from anything like the raikages. The raikage disappeared in a blink of an eye and appeared just above Kushina. Gorochen Doropu, guillotine drop, the raikage said and tried to perform a drop kick on Kushina. However, Kushina, due to her wind armor, managed to jump away and avoid the kick that shattered the ground. Wind slash Kushina said and she reappeared in an instant where the raikage destroyed the ground. Channeling wind chakra through her blade, she performed a horizontal swing and the raikage just had enough time to tilt his head as the blade passed right above his head, cutting a few strands of hair. The raikage quickly recovered and jumped away. As he landed, he noticed a few drops of blood fall to the ground. He placed his hand on his head and he looked at it. He noticed a bit of blood. Even with my lightning armor she managed to cut me, the raikage thought. It was bad luck in the end. The only thing that can beat lightning is wind. The raikage was looking carefully at Kushina before she poofed in smoke. He looked around just in time to see Kushina appearing next to him, trying a horizontal slash across his chest. The raikage, using his lightning reflexes, caught the blade with his bare hands and slammed a kick into Kushina's chest and she was sent tumbling to the ground. The raikage had enough of this. He had to end the battle fast so he could go and help the others' battles. He focused and brought his lightning armor to full power, making it sparkle even more and his hair become spikier. Kushina was looking at him when he suddenly disappeared. She didn't even have time to blink as the raikage repapered right next to her. He grabbed her by the waist and said, "Raiga Bomu, Liger Bomb," and slammed her into the ground, completely tearing her apart and blowing up the ground into smithereens. The raikage jumped and smirked in victory until he noticed that Kushina's body was reforming. A few seconds later she was standing in front of her as if nothing had happened. Damn that Edo Tensai, the raikage thought as he was considering what he could use to end this despicable technique. Kushina walked forward and placed her hand on the ground, touching the raikage's blood from one of his injuries that Kushina managed to inflict. Kushina spread the blood through her hands and flashed through hand seals before slamming both hands on the ground. Fuinjutsu. Gravity well, Kushina said, and kanji erupted from her hands and spread through the area where they were fighting. In less than 2 seconds the whole area was covered. The raikage rose an eyebrow in confusion, but when he saw Kushina activated the seal he almost fell to the ground. The gravity in that area was increased almost 5 times. She's trying to slow me down. Smart, the raikage thought. Infinite blade, Kushina shouted before she disappeared from view. Suddenly the raikage's skins bursted in blood, revealing shallow cuts covering all of his body. The raikage buckled in pain, but this sort of wounds wouldn't slow him down. Raiteningu Sudareto, lightning straight, the raikage said before dashing straight forward towards Kushina with his fist cocked. The only person to ever this attack was Kushina's husband, Namikaze Minato, but due to the gravity field the raikage was slower and Kushina easily dodged it, jumping to the side. Enough of this, the raikage roared before jumping high into the air and saying, "Drop kick," and slammed his feet into the ground, vaporizing all the tiles around the impact and completely disrupting the seal matrix, making Kushina drop the gravity field. They were about to jump at it once again when all of them heard a piercing scream from the middle of the arena. All of them stopped their battles and regrouped, shifting their attention to the arena floor where Shukaku was yelling in pain as he having his chakra suppressed. "This chakra, it's Shukaku," Tobirama said as he was one of the most talented sensor to ever live. "No doubt," Hashirama replied. "Looks like Naruto came through," Jiraiya said, and the old Hokage nodded. "What do you mean, Naruto came through?" Kushina asked in a very sweet voice, making all the males gulp and take a step back. "Did you put my Sochi-san against a Biju?" she asked sweetly, grasping her sword. "And now Kushina, he was the one that chose to face the Ikibi," the Hokage tried to reason with her. "Besides, from the looks of it, it looks like he won," the Hokage said. Jiraiya didn't say anything. He still remembered the beating he took when he tried to spy on her and Minato. Not even Orochimaru himself said anything as he still remembered all the broken bones he had when he said that Kushina looked fat. "He's approaching," Tobirama said, and they all noticed a figure arrived near the roof. Naruto jumped up and phased right through the barrier as if it wasn't even there. "How the hell did that punk pass through the barrier?" Tayuya yelled. "How should I know?" Sakin replied. "Hey old man, need a hand?" Naruto asked before he analyzed the situation. He looked around and saw what Orochimaru had done, but his eyes were fixed on the red-haired woman. Ka-san, mother, Naruto said in a low voice but everyone heard him. Naruto-kun, Kushina said and ran towards her son but Orochimaru forced his control over her making her stop on her tracks, tears running from her eyes. You dare summon my family. You are going to pay Orochimaru. Naruto said and flared his Sharingan making it slowly shift into his Mangekyo. His eternal, displayed for the first to the world without any genjutsu hiding it. Orochimaru was shocked when he noticed the shift in Naruto's eyes and he felt something he hasn't felt in a long time, fear. Is that? Hashirama asked pointing towards the fan in Naruto's back. It's my grandfather's fan, Hashirama Jiji, Naruto said smirking and Hashirama's and Tobirama's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Madara had a son. Hashirama said not believing his ears. He didn't see that one coming. Yes, you did a wonderful job killing him at the Valley of the End, Naruto said. What? Hashirama yelled. He survived. Hashirama asked and Naruto nodded. Ironic, don't you think? Naruto asked and Hashirama got confused. To think the descendants of you two would fall in love, Naruto said. Hashirama and Tobirama chuckled at the irony before they focused their attention on the blonde and noticed his eyes. A Mangekyo. Tobirama asked and sensed his chakra levels making his eyes widen. His chakra levels are through the roof, they are on par with lower class Bijus. How in the world? Tobirama said but Hashirama interrupted him. I sense the Kyuubi's chakra in him, it looks like he's the new Jinchuriki, Hashirama said and Tobirama nodded as it made sense. It's good to see that my legacy lives on, Hashirama said. Naruto, don't go in blindly, they can't be defeated by ordinary means, the Hokage said. I know how the Edo Tensei works Jiji, Naruto said and Kushina smiled at the affectionate name he had for the third. At least he wasn't alone. How do you know it? It's a forbidden technique, the Hokage asked suspiciously. Remember when I found Orochimaru's abandoned laboratory? Naruto asked and the Hokage nodded. In there I found blood samples as well Orochimaru's notebook on the Edo Tensei, Naruto said. The reason I know how it works very well is because I can use it as well, Naruto said and everyone's eyes widened at the statement. Naruto, the Hokage asked with a hard voice, I hope you didn't use. I would never sacrifice someone else's life to bring back anyone. Even if it was family, Naruto said and the Hokage sighed in relief. There are 3 ways to defeat an Edo Tensei. Naruto said getting their attention. 1. Weaken the seal the soul away thus disabling the Edo Tensei permanently. 2. We can vaporize the body completely thus stopping it from reforming or 3rd, since I know the seals we can force the summon to end the Edo Tensei himself. Naruto explained and they frowned. Either way it was going to be difficult. Ero Sennin, Naruto said. Stop calling me that, Jiraiya and the rest sweat dropped. How could they do this in the middle of a fight? Kushina just laughed as she had called him the same when she was alive. I can't use any genjutsu strong enough to force them to release the Edo Tensei so do you know any sealing technique besides the Shiki Fusion? Naruto asked. Yes but it will take time to prepare, Jiraiya said and Naruto nodded. We will hold them until them, Naruto said and everyone rose an eyebrow at the statement. Don't worry Ka-san I'm freeing you from Orochimaru's grasp. Now, shall we dance? Naruto asked smirking and grasping the fan on his back. He always wanted to face against powerful opponents and it didn't get any more powerful than the Hokages. Flashback. Valley of End, Hashirama and Madara were facing each other getting ready to start their duel. I'll say it one last time Madara, forget this path, Hashirama said as he looked at his long date, friend. There is no turning back Hashirama. Now, shall we dance? End flashback, Hashirama chuckled at the similarities between Naruto and Madara. It looked like Madara's blood was running strong through his veins, more strongly than Hashirama's own blood. Old man give me fire, Naruto said to the Hokage and he nodded. Kaiten Karyu Enden, fire dragon bullet, the Hokage said expelling a torrent of white-hot fire towards Orochimaru. Kaiten. Goryuka no Jutsu, great dragon fire technique, Naruto said before he also started to expel his own stream of fire. He quickly picked his fan and swinged empowering the flames with wind. An inferno was unleashed towards Orochimaru but they all remained in place. Tobirama clapped his hands together and water started rotating around all of them before exploding towards the incoming flames. A huge cloud of steam erupted, blinding everyone except Naruto, who, due to his Sharingan, managed to see the chakra of everyone. Taking advantage of the cloud of steam, Naruto quickly threw towards them the last 10 kunai he had with the Hirishin seal. The cloud dispersed and everyone remained in the same, not moving an inch. Suddenly Hashirama started going through hand seals and said, "Mokuten, wood spikes." Suddenly a tree sprouted from the ground and started sending wooden spikes towards Naruto and company. Naruto channeled chakra to his gunbai and said, "Gunbai barrier technique." A semi-circular purple barrier appeared mid-air, intersecting all of the wooden spikes, making them fall to the ground. They were all distracted on defending that they didn't notice Kushina blur right through them, heading towards Jiraiya. "Jiraiya, behind you," the Hokage yelled as Kushina appeared next to Jiraiya, trying to cleave his head off. The Raikage powered his Raiden no Yoroi and dashed at the top of his speed towards Kushina. He wasn't going to arrive in time when they all saw a yellow flash appearing next to Jiraiya and slamming a Rasengan into Kushina. "Arrow Sennin, quick, seal her while she is reforming," Naruto yelled out, making Jiraiya hurry and place one of his finished tags on Kushina's body. "You did well, Naruto-kun. I'm sorry we left you all alone, but we loved you very much. I'm proud of you," Kushina said as her Edo Tensei was starting to crack, indicating her soul was about to be released. "Thank you, Ka-san," Naruto said, sobbing. He usually never let his emotional guard to anyone other than his more trusted people, but this one was an exception. Kushina was starting to fade away before Naruto approached her and whispered something to her ears, only bringing a smile to her face before fading away completely. "You are going down, Orochimaru," Naruto said, glaring at the snake. "That was," the Raikage started saying before everything fell into place. "You are Minato's brat, aren't you?" the Raikage asked rhetorically. "Yes, I am, and by the way, Minato was Madara's son," Naruto said, and the first two Hokages widened their eyes. Who would have thought that Madara's son would have become Hokage? "Enough of this, kill them," Orochimaru ordered, and they all dashed towards the Leaf Defenders. "Jiraiya, how are the tags coming along? Hurry up, will you?" the Hokage asked. "Give me a break. This aren't easy to make," Jiraiya stated. "Here they come," the Raikage said before taking a defensive stance. "Let's end this," the Raikage said, trying to boost the morale. Naruto dashed towards Hashirama and engaged in taijutsu. Naruto had dropped the weights a long time ago if he wanted to keep up with cages. "So this the power of a cage? I need to step up my training," Naruto said as he was being pushed back by Hashirama's raw power. Hashirama threw a right hook that connected with Naruto and left him slightly dazed. Naruto's Kamui activated just time to see Orochimaru's extended neck phasing right through him. "What the hell, you pedophile? Are you trying to give me a hickey?" Naruto smugly asked, trying to piss him off. "You shouldn't rattle him up," the Hokage said, chuckling at his surrogate grandson. "I have another ready," Jiraiya stated, and Naruto nodded. Naruto channeled as much chakra as he could into his body and sent a kick towards Orochimaru and sent him flying. Naruto, using his Kamui, phased right through Hashirama and jumped back. Naruto crouched and concentrated. Golden chains emerged from the ground and snared Hashirama into the ground. The chains twisted around his ankles, snaring him to that spot. "Raikage!" Naruto yelled out before the Raikage abandoned his fight with Tobirama and, charging at full speed, he said, "Lariat." The Raikage dashed towards Hashirama, who was pinned, at full speed, slamming his arm into him, destroying his chest completely. Jiraiya quickly appeared next to them and placed the sealing tag in Hashirama, breaking him free. "The village is in good hands. I hope we meet again, Naruto. Although not too soon," Hashirama said, smiling as his soul was released. The village is in good hands. He could sense that Naruto had a pure heart and that the will of fire burned brightly in him. "That's two down," Naruto said, panting. Even though Kurama could refill his chakras reserves at any time and he had good stamina, this invasion was taking its toll on his body. He already had 2 matches, one against a Biju, he made 2,000 clones, and now he's here fighting against cages. "You now, old man," Naruto said towards the Hokage, panting. "If I don't make Chunin after all this, I'm gonna burn all of your Ika books," Naruto stated, and the Hokage palled. "Easy there," the Hokage said, waving his hands. During all of this, Orochimaru was gritting his teeth. Everything was going so well until the brat appeared, and then his Edo Tenseis started falling like flies. Now they were in an advantage as it was 4 against 3. And the worst part of it, is that he can't afford to kill the brat. Orochimaru decided that enough was enough and spat a sword out of his mouth. It was the Kusanagi sword that is said to be indestructible, then again so is Naruto's fan. Suddenly Naruto stiffened and brought his head down in shame. The Hokage seemed confused and asked what happened. The Kazekage is dead, Naruto said, and Orochimaru eyes widened. The Kazekage was supposed to invade the village with a small army and take its surprise. What happened? The Hokage asked. He was leading 200 shinobis towards us. So I launched my Kirin Jutsu and killed them all, Naruto said in a low voice. He had just killed over 200 people with a single jutsu. Even though he was defending his village, those shinobis were just following orders from their leader and Orochimaru himself. The Hokage's eyes widened as well everyone's else. To be able to kill so many shinobis with a single jutsu. It reminded him of his father the Yellow Flash, who used his Hirishin Jutsu to decimate almost 1,000 shinobis during the Third Great War. To place such guilt on such a young man, the Hokage thought. War never brought benefits to anyone, and this little invasion was proof of that. That must be one hell of a jutsu, the Raikage commented, slightly interested in it. The ability to instantly take out so many shinobis easily ranks the jutsu as S rank. The next tag is ready, Jiraiya stated, and they got ready once again. I won't allow this anymore. Mito, use anything, use your strongest seal, I don't care, just finish them, Orochimaru ordered, and Mito obeyed. Mito instantly started going through hand seals at very high speed, indicating that it was going to be one big sequence, and big sequences usually aren't good. Jiraiya was watching carefully the seal sequence when his eyes widened in realization. You can't allow her to finish that seal. Stop her now, Jiraiya yelled, but it was too late. Sealing trap. Obliteration, Mito said, and instantly kanji erupted from her hand and covered the entire roof where Jiraiya and others were. The kanji suddenly starting flowing through the air, trapping Jiraiya and the other in a sphere. Activate, Mito said, and the kanji sphere glowed before exploding with such a force that the entire building shook, but the explosion and flames didn't leave the sphere and remained there for a few seconds. The flames died down and kanji faded, dispersing the sphere. Orochimaru smirked when the smoke cleared as he saw nothing inside the sphere. He couldn't even sense them anymore, so that could only mean that he won. In the end, Konoha shall perish as well, Orochimaru said, laughing, and the Edo Tensei looked down in shame. Don't get cocky, boy, the Raikage said, and they all reappeared in the rooftop via Naruto's Kamui. Naruto by this time was sitting on the ground taking long breaths. How did you survive? Orochimaru asked, getting pissed. No matter what he did, they always managed to escape. You have Naruto to thank for. The Hokage said, looking at him. He transported us all to his pocket dimension just before the explosion happened, the Hokage said, chuckling, and Orochimaru scowled. You really are one of the kind, Naruto-kun, Orochimaru said, chuckling. Such a perfect vessel, he said. I don't swing that way, Naruto said, chuckling. I have both tags ready, let's end this for good, Jiraiya said before everyone agreed. This battle had gone on long enough and Naruto was almost completely exhausted. I'll make my final move, Naruto said before he disappeared in a flash. He reappeared right behind Tobirama and slammed a Rasengan in his back, sending him flying towards the Hokage, who caught him and immobilized him, allowing Jiraiya to seal him. You did well, Saru, Tobirama said before disappearing. Thank you, sensei, the Hokage replied. You are next, Naruto whispered into Mito's ear as he flashed behind her as well. Rasengan, Naruto said, and slammed it against Mito, destroying her body completely. Jiraiya quickly approached her and placed the tag on her, releasing her as well. Now it's only Orochimaru, the Hokage said. Konoha may have survived today, but it shall fall, Orochimaru said as he getting ready to leave. You are not going anywhere, Naruto said as he flashed next to him and grabbed him by the arm. The moment Naruto caught Orochimaru, kanji started flowing out of Naruto's arm. Orochimaru, seeing this, immediately performed a kawarimi with a log, but the kanji did manage to cover his entire right arm. This is the end, Naruto said before placing his right hand in the tiger seal. Activate, Naruto said, and almost instantly the kanji glowed in what seemed to be worst pain Orochimaru ever felt. This one was even worse. Orochimaru screamed in pain until the seal started to fade off and disappeared from his arm. What pant did you do, pant brat? Orochimaru asked. His arm felt normal, however it was a bit numb from the pain. I destroyed the chakra network on your arm. You can no longer mold chakra with that arm. You lose, Naruto said smirking. This won't be the end. Drop the barrier, we are leaving, Orochimaru ordered, and immediately the Sound Four dropped the barrier and ran towards their master. They grabbed him and tried to jump away. You aren't going anywhere, Naruto said before he summoned his golden chains and tried to capture them, but one of the Sounds Four launched what seemed to a spider's web, giving them enough time to shunshin away. Damn it, they got away, Naruto said, punching the ground. Don't worry Naruto-kun, we will get him eventually, the Hokage said. All of them were taking deep breaths as they overlooked Konoha. It seemed that the village didn't take much damage and the Hokage was glad for it. Naruto suddenly clutched his head in pain. Old man, the invasion is over and my clones are dispelling, so I'll be fainting now. See you tomorrow, Naruto said as his eyes rolled behind his head and he fell to the ground only to have the Hokage grabbing him. Rest now Naruto. You did much more than I could ever hope for, the Hokage said as he picked Naruto and secured him in his back. That's some kid, the Raikage said. Yes he is, Jiraiya said, proud of the shinobi his godson became. Chapter 25 Aftermath. Konoha had proved once again why it was considered the strongest of the elemental nations. Konoha was pitted against two other villages, one of them being one of the top 5, and yet Konoha came victorious. However, in war, no victory is without sacrifice, and as such Konoha lost a few shinobis whose names would forever be engraved in the memorial stone. Naruto was slowly regaining consciousness and opened his eyes only to be blinded and brought his hand to cover them. He slowly adjusted to the light and looked up to see a white ceiling. He took the scent of the place and it smelled like disinfectant. Great, I'm in the hospital, Naruto mumbled to himself and tried to rise but felt a weight in his chest. He looked down and saw a mop of dark blue hair that belonged to Hinata. She was curled against him with her head on his chest drooling. It was a funny sight to see. He chuckled and softly shook Hinata, trying to awake her. She began to stir and opened those white eyes that Naruto loved so much. She rubbed them to shake off her sleepiness and took her surroundings to find Naruto's deep blue eyes staring at her. Comfortable? Naruto asked with an amused smile. Very much, thank you, Hinata replied and tried to bury her face closer to his chest. How long have you been here? Naruto asked. I didn't want to sleep alone at the house, so I infiltrated the hospital after hours so I could cuddle with you, Hinata said, slightly blushing, and Naruto chuckled. How is everyone doing? Naruto asked, sitting up and stretching his arms. Everyone we know is fine, but the village did suffer its casualties. Hinata explained, looking down. I understand, Naruto said. He gently grabbed her chin, making her lock eyes with her. Cheer up, Naruto said and slightly kissed her on lips. The quick kiss became a hot make-out session with Naruto leaning against the wall and Hinata straddling him and holding him by his neck. Oh yeah, this is golden. Ryu tries to cheer up his lover by kissing her deeply, his hands feeling her soft skin. Moments later his hands start roaming down, eliciting a small moan of bliss from Hiromi, Jiraiya said out loud as he was scribbling furiously on his notepad. This kid will be even better than his father, Jiraiya continued on writing as a small trick of blood fell from his nose. What are you doing, Jiraiya-sama? Jiraiya looked up to see Hinata with a very sweet smile on her face. Jiraiya paled at that particular smile and he could swear he saw a visage of the Shinigami behind her. Have mercy. Jiraiya said, pleading. Not today, Jiraiya-sama, not today, Hinata said before her Byakugan flared. Secret technique. 1000 years of pain, Hinata said, and empowering her fingers with chakra she slammed them right in Jiraiya's butt, sending him flying into Naruto's room and crashing into the wall. Naruto was wondering what this commotion was until he saw his pervert of a godfather flying into his room. Jiraiya crashed into the wall and fell to the ground crying anime tears with his ass smoking. Hinata approached the pervert, who recoiled in fear as she approached. She quickly found out his notebook and threw it the air and burned it to ashes with a small Kaiden jutsu. This particular Kaiden jutsu was taught to her by Kurenai, who burned every Ika she found. NNNNNOOOOOOOO, Jiraiya yelled, crying as he watched his precious work turn to ashes. Naruto just chuckled at the antics of his godfather, who was now getting back to his feet while nursing his precious butt. How are you doing, Gaki? Jiraiya asked. I'm good. I just had chakra exhaustion, I'm good as new, Naruto replied. Good good, Jiraiya replied as he saw the ashes of his notebook fly off the window and sunk his head. Naruto looked around and when he didn't see it he decided to ask Jiraiya. Arrow Sennin, Naruto said gaining a thick mark from Jiraiya, have you seen my fan? Naruto asked. I have it right here, Jiraiya said and took out a scroll from his back and unsealed his fan. Jiraiya picked it up and Naruto raised an eyebrow. Jiraiya saw the surprised face on Naruto and asked what was wrong. I'm just surprised you can lift the weapon so easily. You do realize that that thing eats a lot of chakra, Naruto said and Jiraiya sensed his chakra to noticed almost 20% missing. This thing just ate a fifth of my chakra just by picking it up. How can you use it? Jiraiya asked confused as he placed the fan near his bed. That fan was created by the Rakuto Sennin and only a descendant from him can use his weapons without the massive chakra drain, Naruto explained and Jiraiya nodded. There are only two people left on this world that can use these weapons, me and my grandmother, Naruto said. Speaking of which Sarutobi-sensei told me to take you both to his office when you woke up, Jiraiya said and Naruto nodded. Jiraiya called a nurse over so she could do a quick check-up on Naruto and allowing him to leave. He's completely back to normal. You can go, the nurse said and Naruto jumped off the bed. He quickly got dressed, picked his fan and placed it on his back and they all left towards the Hokage tower. Naruto, Jiraiya called and Naruto focused in attention on him. Can't you Hirishin us to the tower? Jiraiya asked and Naruto sweat dropped. His father's S-rank space-time technique that he used to decimate a battalion was reduced to transportation. I can but I won't. I want to stretch my legs, Naruto said and Jiraiya pouted. They were calmly walking through the streets without a care in the world. Naruto got so caught up in his thoughts he didn't notice the road ahead of him and crashed into a civilian knocking him to the ground and making Naruto recoil a bit. When the civilian noticed who he crashed into quickly rose up and bowed to Naruto before he could even apologize. My apologies Uchiha-sama, the civilian said and everyone raised an eyebrow. Uchiha-sama? Naruto asked and the civilian flinched. Hi, the civilian replied slightly fearful. Figures, Naruto thought. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, for now anyway, and you don't have to bow to me. I hold no grudge against any of you, Naruto said and the civilian sighed in relief. He didn't want to piss of the grandson of Uchiha Madara himself, even more after what he heard Naruto did during the invasion. Thank you Naruto-san, the civilian said and left. That was interesting, Jiraiya said and Hinata nodded. Indeed, maybe they will stop shouting demon everywhere I go. That's always a plus, Naruto said and looked at the other civilians walking in the streets but the looks Naruto used to receive weren't there anymore. In the beginning they held hatred, after he showed them the Kyuubi they held fear but now they seem to hold respect and admiration. Hokage Tower they all arrived at the Hokage Tower and went through the doors to see the old Hokage giggling like a mad man with blood trickling from his nose while he had a few kage bushins working on his paperwork. The Hokage giggled once more and Naruto's sweat dropped only to see Hinata disappear in a blur and snatching the Hokage's book and destroying it with the same Kaden jutsu. Are all men perverts? Hinata asked out loud and got a sigh from the Hokage. How are you feeling Naruto-kun? The Hokage asked. Naruto outdid himself against the cages. It isn't every day we see a 14-year-old boy hold his own against cage-level shinobis. I'm good as new, Naruto replied. Now let's get into business, the Hokage said as his clones dispelled and he took his seat behind his desk. Oh by the Gigi. Naruto said getting the Hokage's attention. Did you take the scroll I had with me because I had Gaara and his team sealed in there, Naruto said. Yes don't worry they are all in lockdown pending negotiations with the Sand, the Hokage explained. And what is the Sand saying? Jiraiya asked. It's up to the council now since the Kage died in the invasion and they took a very heavy blow. They came at us with a full battalion of almost 1,000 shinobis and they can't risk war against us so they will comply with our demands, the Hokage explained. What did you ask? Naruto asked. Financial compensation for the damage dealt to the village and we are keeping Gaara as another Jinchuriki and their team should they choose to stay as well, the Hokage said and Naruto raised an eyebrow. I know you may not like it but the Bijus dictate the power shifts in the villages. Until now we only had the Kyuubi, now we have two if Gaara decides to turn friendly to our side, the Hokage said. Naruto brought his hand to his chin in thought and replied, He holds no love for his village as he was treated like me. Good, the Hokage replied. Now they would stand like Kumo and Iwa both having two bijus. The Leaf never prided themselves on making weapons of Jinchurikis and proved it many times. They won 3 world wars by having extremely skilled shinobis and not relying on Jinchurikis to do their work. But before that we should fix Gaara's seal, Naruto said, and Jiraiya rose an eyebrow in confusion. After I placed my demonic suppression seal on Gaara I noticed some irregularities. The seal that holds Shukaku was designed for inmate objects, it's nothing more than an advanced storage seal, that is why Gaara is so unstable. It is probably also affecting Shukaku, Naruto explained, and Jiraiya nodded. We will take care of that later, but now I have other concerns, the Hokage explained before taking out a file and handing it to Naruto to read. What's this? Naruto asked as he picked the file and started reading it. The report on how good Uchiha Sasuke did during the invasion based on Shinobi Sa and Kakashi himself, the Hokage explained. Invasion report. Name, Uchiha Sasuke. Team affiliation, Team 7 under Hatake Kakashi. Rank, Genin. Team assigned, Nara Shikamaru and Haruno Sakura. Description. Sasuke displayed high level of skill and responsibility by taking charge of a Genin team and provided crucial assistance in the civilians' evacuation as well, defeating multiple Chunin-level shinobis from both Sand and Sound. Recommendation. Promotion to Chunin. Okay, now what? Naruto asked, slightly confused as to why the Hokage would show him this. I want yours and Hinata's opinion on this, the Hokage explained. Why us? Naruto asked. You are friends with him and know him better than anyone, the Hokage said. Friends is a very strong word, Naruto said, sighing before pulling his thoughts together. I have no doubt that Sasuke is strong enough for Chunin, it's just his attitude that endangers this. If he does get promoted his ego will skyrocket and he might conflict if someone of the same rank is chosen as leader. Naruto reasoned. In the other hand, not promoting him will just enrage him even more as he will think that the village is holding him back, and with Orochimaru's offering of power he might be a flight risk. Naruto finished his explanation. What about you, Hinata-chan? Naruto asked. I agree with you, he's too focused on revenge and both choices have drawbacks. However, promoting him and placing him with a strong leader will solve these problems, Hinata replied, and the Hokage nodded in comprehension and would take this later on with the council. I will take it into consideration. Now on to the next manner, and this relates to you, Naruto, the Hokage said, and Naruto focused on him. I'm too old for this job. I should have stayed retired, but when your father died I was forced to take back the hat, the Hokage said, sighing. This invasion was proof of that. I'm no longer strong enough to lead this village and as such I chose a successor, the Hokage explained. Are you giving the hat to the pervert? Naruto asked offhandedly and got a smack on the head from Jiraiya. I'm not a pervert, I'm a super pervert, Jiraiya said. Cough, the Hokage forced to show the silence the bickering duo. I would have asked him but he would have refused, the Hokage said, and Jiraiya nodded as it was true. His spy network was of too much importance to the village, and besides he wasn't the type of man to be strapped behind a desk 8 hours a day. Now this brings the main reason I asked Jiraiya to bring you in, the Hokage said, but before he continued Naruto interrupted him. You are making me Hokage? Naruto asked with disbelieving look. Not yet, I'm afraid, the Hokage replied, chuckling. The reason I called you here is because Jiraiya wants you to accompany him into searching for my replacement Senju Tsunade, the Hokage finished with an amused smirk on his old face. Really? Naruto beamed, thinking of going to search for the last piece of family he has, even if she doesn't know about him. Yes, although she might be a bit reluctant into coming back to the village, the Hokage said, sighing. She hasn't been able to cope with her losses and she throws herself into drinking and gambling. Don't worry, I'll bring her back to the village. That's a promise and I never go back in my word, Naruto said. Now this brings us to final topic of this meeting, the Hokage said, and Naruto sighed. They had already been here for quite a while and it seemed it wasn't going to end anytime soon. After this I'm calling a council meeting to give the promotions. You will be promoted to Chunin, which gives you the right to have a council seat as the head of the Senju, Uzumaki and Namikaze clans, the Hokage said, and Naruto nodded. So have you decided on your name and if you will take the seat right now, the Hokage asked. Naruto once again was lost in thoughts. The Uzumaki name has been with him since his birth, but it's too far away and apparently he's the last of the Uzumaki along with Tsunade. He would like to honor the Namikaze name of his father, but that never belonged to any clan and he wouldn't want to forget the Senju clan. The Uchiha name was out of the question and as such the choice was only between Senju and Namikaze. It was a tough choice in the end. Naruto would be leaving one name to die and as such he decided that he should not let the name of the founders of Konoha to be forgotten in history. I'll take the Senju name. From now on I'm Senju Naruto. Naruto said. The Hokage smiled. It was good choice as it were any other, but Sarutobi liked that he chose the founder's clan name. Are you taking the seat now? The Hokage asked. Naruto mused in thought. I don't know, there is going to be lot of noise because of this, Naruto said. Yes, but they can't deny you your heritage, the Hokage explained. I'll take it. Now let's go make some noise, Naruto said, smirking at the thought of all those yelling civilians. The Hokage just sweat dropped. The Hokage flared his chakra and an anbu dropped from the ceiling and knelt in front of him waiting orders. Summon the council and call Uchiha Sasuke and Nara Shikamaru, the Hokage said. Hi, the anbu replied and disappeared in smoke. Let's go face the music, Senju Naruto, the Hokage said, chuckling, and they all left the office and went towards the council room. Council room. It took about half an hour before all the clan heads could come. They were all seated in the traditional place. The Hokage, Jiraiya, Naruto and Hinata walked through the double doors and saw that the council was already assembled. The Hokage sat down and noticed the room. To his left were the clan heads. There was an empty seat closest to him, followed by Inuzuka Sume, head of Inuzuka clan, Hyuga Hiashi, head of the Hyuga clan, Aburame Shibi, head of the Aburame clan, Nara Shikaku, head of the Nara clan, Yamanaka Inoichi, head of the Yamanaka clan, and finally Akamichi Choza, head of the Akamichi clan. To his right there were his advisors, Shimura Danzo, Mitokado Homura and Udatane Kaharu. Next to them was the civilian side of the council. It consisted of the most important civilians in the village that ran the most shops and provided food, clothes and other materials and services for shinobi use. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, grandson of the legendary Uchiha Madara. Sasuke remembered those words as he watched Naruto walk into the room. His long hair and the fan on his back made Sasuke seethe his teeth as he was permanently reminded of his utterly defeat. The council is in session, the Hokage said before looking at the genins in front of him. We are here today to award promotions to these extraordinary genin for their skill and work during the invasion, the Hokage started. Nara Shikamaru stepped forward. The Hokage called out and Shikamaru stepped forward as requested. For great planning during your match and work during the invasion, we promote you to Chunin. Congratulations and keep up the good work, the Hokage said and threw him a flak jacket. Troublesome, Shikamaru said before putting his jacket on and stepping back. Hyuga Hinata, the Hokage called out and Hinata stepped forward. For great skill in taijutsu and ninjutsu and for remaining calm at the face of stronger opponents, we promote you to Chunin. Congratulations, the Hokage said with a smile. Thank you, Hokage-sama, Hinata replied. Uchiha Sasuke, the Hokage called out and he stepped forward with his traditional cocky smirk. You are a special case. After many deliberations and taking into account the work you did during the invasion, you were promoted to Chunin. At this, Sasuke's smirk got even wider. But any sign of insubordination or failure in conduct and you are stripped of the rank, understood, the Hokage said in a serious voice, leaking a bit of ki. Of course, Hokage-sama, Sasuke replied, still with his smile. And finally, the Hokage said, shifting his attention towards Naruto. For great skill in defeating not only Shukaku but for providing great assistance during the invasion in defeating the Kazekage and providing assistance to me against Orochimaru, I award the rank of Elite Chunin to Senju Naruto, the Hokage said, and an immense silence followed. Everyone was still wondering if they heard their Hokage correctly. What? Sasuke yelled out and pretty much resumed the thoughts of everyone in the room. How can he be a Senju? Sasuke said, spitting the Senju name. He has the Sharingan, Naruto stated. Everything I said is true. Naruto is the last remaining Senju in the village, the Hokage explained, and surprisingly enough no one yelled or said anything and they just stared at the Hokage waiting for an explanation. You all know that Senju Tsunade had a daughter, right? The Hokage asked and the clan heads nodded. Yes, but she died, Hiashi stated in a calm tone. That Naruto was becoming more surprising by the moment. Her death was faked by me to protect her from the CRA, the Hokage said, and they all gasped. To think the Hokage would go to such lengths to protect someone from CRA. Her death was faked and Uzumaki Kushina was born, the Hokage said, and Shukaku eyes widened in realization. Troublesome, he said without thinking, making the Hokage focus on him. Trust Nara to figure the rest, the Hokage thought. Would you like to do the honors, the Hokage asked. Troublesome, Shukaku said before pulling his thoughts together. You all remembered that red-haired loudmouth, right? Shukaku asked and everyone nodded. After all, Konoha's Red Death wasn't easily forgotten. We all know who she was always around, right? Shukaku asked almost rhetorically. Yes, that hussy was always around, Minato-kun, the pink banshee said. The moment she said hussy, Naruto's chakra spiked to the level that everyone gulped in a dry throat due to his presence alone. However, he didn't release any ki, and as such the civilian were all oblivious to that. If Naruto is a member of the Senju clan, the only possible outcome would be if he's Kushina's son and looking at him. Blonde hair, blue eyes. I'm confident assuming that Minato was the father, Shukaku said, and everyone eyes widened. Who's Minato? Sasuke asked, who was oblivious. You wanted to know who my father was, right? Naruto asked to Sasuke, who nodded. My father was Namikaze Minato, Yondaime Hokage and Uchiha Madara's son, Naruto said, and everyone jaw hit the ground. Who would in their sanity believe that Madara's son would become Hokage? It's ironic. The son of the greatest traitor became our biggest hero, Naruto stated out loud. And the funny part of all this is that Madara hated the Senju and his son ended up marrying one, Shukaku said, and everyone chuckled. So that means that you are the great-grandson of Senju Hashirama, the Shodaime Hokage, great-grandnephew of Senju Tobirama, the Nadaime Hokage, grandson of Uchiha Madara and son of Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage, Sum said, whistling. That was one powerful lineage right there. And you people treated him like garbage, Sum growled at the civilian side, who held their heads down in shame. But that's not all, the Hokage said, gathering their attention to him. I'm resigning, and as such I've chosen my successor, the Hokage said, and many were shocked by this blunt statement. After this meeting, Jiraiya along with Naruto will be retrieving Senju Tsunade, Naruto's grandmother, for the position of Godaime Hokage, the Hokage said, and people were happy with his choice. Tsunade was considered a princess in the village and was a Sannin with the power of a cage, so she was a fine choice. A very strong lineage indeed, Hiashi commented, but everyone could heard the tone which was said. A fine choice, perhaps my teachings weren't a total loss, Hiashi thought discreetly, looking at Hinata. Even if they were low in numbers, the Senju clan was still one of the most powerful and renowned clan in the entire world. Enough! Sasuke yelled, making everyone jump from the sudden sound spike. You are an affront to the Uchiha clan. You flaunt that fan and have the Sharingan, and yet you choose to honor the Senju name, Sasuke said. You are a disgrace and unworthy of such weapon, Sasuke spat. You want my fan now? Naruto asked. Yes, I demand you hand that fan as it belongs to an elite Uchiha like me, Sasuke said, and Naruto laughed and Sasuke got a tick mark on his face. You don't even know how irony-packed that statement is, Naruto said, and Sasuke got confused and was getting angrier by the moment. I will explain everything, so just listen, Naruto stated. Sasuke, can you tell me what are the levels of the Sharingan? Naruto asked, prodding around a bit, wondering if he knew about the Mangekyo. The Hokage sent Naruto a look that clearly said, do you think it's wise, but Naruto nodded. It would become knowledge at any point in time, so he just wanted to get this over with, so he didn't have anything more to worry about. 3 levels, from 1 to 3 tomos in each eye, Sasuke simply said, but Naruto sent a knowing look. Fine, there is a 4th level called Mangekyo Sharingan, but can only be obtained by killing your best friend, Sasuke blurted out without wanting, making Naruto raise an eyebrow. Naruto knew that because Kurama told him about it, but how could Sasuke now? How do you know how to achieve it? Naruto asked, narrowing his eyes. Itachi told me to come after him when I had the same eyes as him, Sasuke replied, and Naruto seemed to accept the answer. Now let me tell you all something that has long been forgotten, Naruto said, and everyone focused on him. We all know the legend of Rakuto Sennin, right? Naruto asked, and every nodded. They were all shinobis, and as such they all knew the tales of their father. Rakuto Sennin was a shinobi of unparalleled power, he was even considered to be a god. During his life he had two sons. His older son inherited the sage's eyes and found the Uchiha clan, and the younger brother inherited the sage's body and founded the Senju clan, Naruto said, and everyone raised an eyebrow at the statement. How do you all this, Naruto-san? Shibi asked. Let's just say that the furball is an endless pit of information, Naruto explained, and his stomach growled at the furball nickname. Moving on. When his life was ending he had to choose who would carry on his work, and as such he chose the younger brother, the Senju leader. However, this didn't sit well with the Uchiha brother, who thought that being the firstborn deserved to be the one to lead the world to peace through strength. Naruto said, and everyone was focused on his explanation. The silence was disturbing. As such, the older brother challenged the younger one to a battle for the title but lost. Angry with this loss, he decided to exterminate the Senju before it even began, but he would need more power to do that. He decided to perform a blood ritual to transform normal person into Uchihas capable of using the Sharingan, Naruto explained, and everyone's widened. The benefits of such ritual were unparalleled and could easily bring Konoha to heights never before reached. The Uchihas, created by the blood ritual, were half-blood, while the ones that came from the older brother's line were called elite or pure blood. Everyone understand? Naruto asked, and everyone nodded. The pure blood line was my grandfather's line, going through Minato into me. I assume that my grandfather is dead from a letter I have from him, so I'm the last of the pure blood Uchihas, making Sasuke a half-blood, Naruto explained, and Sasuke seethed. He didn't want to be a half-blood created by some ritual. And what's the difference between the pure blood and half-blood? Shukaku asked curiously. The key difference lies in the activation of the fourth and final stage of the Sharingan. In pure blood Uchihas, the final level is achieved like any others through training in life and death situations, like mine, Naruto said, and closed his eyes. He opened and showed them the normal Sharingan, but then the Sharingan started to slowly spin until it became his Mangekyo. This is my Mangekyo I achieved when that civilian sent 2 Jonins to kill me. I've got to thank you for that, Naruto said, smirking with his M's glowing in all its glory. Everyone was drawn to his eyes, his blood-red eyes that seemed to give off power beyond anything ever imagined. The true power of the Sharingan, the power of Uchiha Madara. He just became much more dangerous, Hiashi thought as he watched his Mangekyo glow. But there is one more key difference, Naruto said, and broke everyone trance just from looking at his eyes. If a half-blood Uchiha awakens his Mangekyo, the more they use it, the more the eyes get sealed until there is nothing more than darkness, Naruto said, and everyone's eyes widened. So that's the price for power for the half-blood. That's why I said you didn't know how irony-packed that statement was. You called yourself an elite Uchiha, but in the end you are nothing more than a copy, Naruto explained as he deactivated his eyes and waited for the explosion. That came out a little harsher than I wanted, Naruto thought in retrospect. How dare you mock me? Sasuke said to him, spiting every word. Is there any proof you can give? Sasuke asked. Just one, my fan. Naruto said and removed it from his back. This fan was created by Raikudo Sennin, and as such only a true descendant can wield it without massive chakra consumption. Naruto explained. Hinata-chan, can you check Sasuke chakra levels? Naruto asked. If he gave the fan to Sasuke and he didn't have enough chakra, he would hit the ground dead like a sack of potatoes. He's around Jonin level, Hinata said, and Naruto nodded. You want to prove that you are pure blood? Naruto asked Sasuke, who nodded. Then pick my fan without fainting, Naruto said, and offered the fan to Sasuke. The moment Sasuke just touched the fan, he collapsed to the ground on his knees, taking deep breaths. Is that enough proof? Naruto asked as he replaced the fan on his back. There are only 2 people in the whole world that can use the fan, me and my grandmother Senju Tsunade, Naruto explained, and everyone was still processing everything they heard until now. It doesn't mean that you can't be strong, Sasuke, it only means that the next level of eyes isn't worth the cost, Naruto explained. He knew that this explanation would piss Sasuke even more, but he had to find out sometime. I'll make my own choices, Senju, Sasuke said, and left the council room without even asking for permission and slammed the door shut. It was inevitable, the Hokage said. I have a question, Danzo said, and Naruto shifted his attention towards him. Do you know how to do this blood ritual? Danzo innocently asked. No, but even if I did I wouldn't reveal it, Naruto said, and Danzo scoffed. I hold no hate for them, but the half-blood Uchihas shouldn't have been created in the first place, Naruto explained. That's a bit harsh coming from you, Inoichi said. True, but you knew the Uchihas and their hunger for power. If they all knew how to achieve the next level, what do you think they would do? Naruto rhetorically asked. I think Itachi wiping them out was a blessing in disguise, Naruto said. You have no idea how right you are, the Hokage thought to himself, as did his personal counselors. Well, this was a very strange day of revelations, Homura said. Yes, is there anything else you want to discuss? The Hokage asked, and the pink banshee raised her hand. Yes, Hokage-sama. Since Naruto-sama is now the sole heir to a clan, the CRA applies to him, the pink banshee stated, and Naruto's eye twitched. I have a question. You didn't know about me until now, so why didn't Sasuke go into CRA? Naruto asked, trying to outmaneuver them as he already knew this was coming. We didn't want to pressure him as he might run away, the pink banshee explained. Well, then apply the same principle to me. If you force me into CRA, I will leave the village, and the Senju, Uzumaki, Namikaze and pure blood Uchiha line ends with me, Naruto stated out loud and clear, and Jiraiya scoffed. He didn't know why his godson wouldn't want a harem, but he was just like Minato, an idealist. Hinata is the only one for me, Naruto said, and Hinata turned bright red. Kids, with Naruto-kun, Hinata thought before fainting. Naruto quickly rushed to her and caught just before she hit the deck. She hasn't fainted in years, Naruto said, chuckling. So are we clear about the CRA? Naruto asked with a serious voice. But you can't refuse its law, the pink banshee tried to explain, but she couldn't but feel a bit scared of him. I took down a Biju alone. I suppose it's civilians like you that are going to force me. Naruto rhetorically asked. He didn't want to flaunt his power, but in this case he was forced. The pink banshee flinched at his tone and said nothing more. She was trying to set him up with Sakura, but it appears it's too late. The shinobi side never really appreciated the CRA, especially the females. Just the thought of being turned into a baby factory made them want to puke. Anything else? Naruto asked, but everyone remained silent. The meeting is adjourned, the Hokage said, and everyone started leaving except Jiraiya, Naruto and the fainted Hinata, who was regaining conscious. That was a very interesting meeting, the Hokage explained. Yes, and they didn't want to kill me this time, Naruto said, chuckling. Although Sasuke didn't seem happy, Naruto said. Can't really blame him, Jiraiya said. Are you ready to head out? Jiraiya asked. Two things. Can Hinata go with us? And I would like to visit Gaara before, Naruto said, and both Jiraiya and the Hokage nodded. Here, the Hokage gave him a paper to allow him to visit Gaara. Meet with Jiraiya and Hinata at the north gate in 2 hours then, the Hokage said, and everyone left the room. It department Naruto made this way towards the interrogation and torture division. The IT division was located near the Hokage tower, so it was only a couple of minutes on foot. He entered the building and suddenly a kunai came out of nowhere and grazed his cheek, drawing a bit of blood. Naruto turned around, no see Anko trying to lick his blood, but apparently the wound was already closed. What kind of greeting is this? Naruto asked, shaking his head. You are no fun, Anko pouted. So what are you doing where, Mr. Uchiha? Anko asked, and Naruto sighed. My name is Senju Naruto and I'm here to see Gaara, Naruto explained, and Anko's eyes widened to the Senju name. Here, Naruto said, and delivered her the Hokage's permission to visit the inmates. After you, Senju-sama, Anko said, licking her lips and bowing deeply. Crazy snake lady, Naruto muttered in thought. Naruto made his way down the stairs and came into a heavy metallic door with an Anbu stationed outside. Naruto quickly showed him his permission and was allowed inside where the holding cells were. This section didn't have many cells when compared to Konoha's prison because the IT department was only temporary. Naruto arrived to the last cell and looked inside. In there were Baki, Temari and Kankuro, all wearing chakra seals and restricting clothes. Gaara, however, was chained to the middle of the room with a kanji circle around him. Come to gloat? Temari asked. Her voice broken and weak. Not my style, Naruto replied. She didn't understand how a 14-year-old defeated not only her sensei, who was a jonin, but also her brother. In fact, I came to talk to Gaara and explain a few things, Naruto said, and Gaara looked up, locking eyes with Naruto. How is the seal? Naruto asked. How are you so strong? Gaara asked instead of replying Naruto's original question. Enter Naruto OST 1 Sadness and Sorrow. The pain of being alone is really terrible, right? Naruto asked and Gaara's eyes widened. I don't know why, but I understand your feelings so well that it hurts me, Naruto said, and everyone was silent. But I have precious people now, and I would never allow anyone to hurt them, Naruto said. Why do that for strangers? Gaara asked with shaky voice. Because they took away my solitude and loneliness, Naruto said. They saved me from my hell, and because of that they are precious to me and I would do anything for them, Naruto explained. Love, is that why is strong? Gaara mused in thought. Hinata-chan, Hokage Gigi, Iruka-sensei, Kakashi-sensei. And more. Naruto said, smiling. I don't have anyone like that. You were lucky, Gaara said sadly. You just have to look around. And not very far, Naruto said, pointing towards his brothers and sensei. When I placed the barrier, they jumped in even knowing that you might lose control and kill them as well, Naruto explained. Really? Gaara shakily asked. Of course Gaara, we are your brothers, we would anything for you, Kankuro said, patting him in the back. Thank you, Gaara said, smiling for the first time in a long time. End Naruto OST 1 Sadness and Sorrow. Before we begin again, I need to tell you that. Naruto bit his lips but continued. I was the one that killed your father, Naruto said. Killing someone else's father is hardly a good thing when starting a friendship. Good, Gaara said, and Naruto faltered for a moment before regaining his senses. Good. Naruto asked in disbelief. Yes, he turned me into a weapon and then tried to kill me on several occasions by sending assassins. Besides, he was never a father to anyone of us, Gaara explained, and Naruto sighed in relief. Now I have good news and bad news, Naruto said, and the Sand team focused on them. The demands we made towards the Sand were financial reimbursement and the Ikibi, Naruto said, and everyone's eyes widened. Which means that you, Gaara, won't be allowed to leave the village, Naruto said, and Gaara remained silent. However, you might be able to join our ranks and be a Jinchuriki like me, Naruto explained, and Gaara nodded. He never really enjoyed his time in the Sand, so maybe Konoha would be a nice change of pace. What about us? Temari asked. She didn't know what they were planning from them, and it could be execution. As an offer of good faith towards the Sand, we are offering you a choice. You can remain here in the Leaf as Shinobis, or you can return to your home village, Naruto explained, and they started thinking. We stay with our little brother, Temari and Kankuro, and Naruto chuckled and turned to Baki, who remained silent through this whole meeting. I can't remain here. I have people there, Baki shakily said, and Naruto nodded. I understand, Naruto said, and got up. I'm going now to get the 5th Hokage since the old man is retiring. When I come back I will take you all to ramen, my treat, Naruto said. Ramen? Gaara asked. They apparently didn't have those types of food in there. Ramen is food for the gods, you will love it. See you in a few days, Naruto said, and left the IT department, heading towards the gate where Jiraiya and Hinata were waiting. Naruto. You are a strange person, Gaara thought. Sand Village Council Room It has been a couple of days since the failed invasion, and the scarce survivors of the invading force arrived at Suna to inform them of a terrible mistake and ever worse failure. News that the Kazekage was killed in combat forced the council to be summoned, and the demands from the Leaf answered. Of the 1,000 shinobis they sent, only a couple dozen survived to tell the tale. It was a massacre to the Sand shinobi to lose so much and gain nothing in return. The Sand never stood a chance. Even with Oto and Gaara's power combined, they were utterly defeated. The Suna Council was composed of 12 members, now only 10 since the Kazekage was dead and Baki, the Jonin commander, was missing in action or dead. What a mess, Dai said. Dai was one of the youngest members of the council. He was a Chunin who got recently promoted and was the head of intelligence in the Sand. What do we do now? Aki asked. Aki was a middle-aged man. He was a retired Chunin from the shinobi life and chose a simple civilian life with his wife and kids. I say we fight, Kimi said. Kimi was one of the few civilians in the council. She was the leader of the civilian council that ran all of the stores in the village. We can't fight. We lost a fifth of our shinobis to that invasion. That attack was a leap of faith and wild card. We are severely weakened right now and we probably wouldn't be able to hold an attack should the Leaf go to war with us, Aki explained. According to the reports, their Jinchuriki was able to defeat Gaara and kill the Kazekage along with 200 of our own with a single jutsu. Yura and everyone's eyes widened. What could they do against such overwhelming force? We can't do anything else but to surrender to their terms, Yura said sighing. Their village took a very hard blow and it would take years to recover. We can't surrender to them, Kimi said. We broke the peace treaty, we invaded and lost. We have no choice but to surrender the money and the Ikibi to them, Yura said. They want our Biju. That's unacceptable, Aki said. Would you prefer war? Yura rhetorically asked. We can win, we will have the home field advantage, Dai explained. And their Jinchuriki uses the same jutsu and obliterates the village. Konoha isn't considered the strongest of the five for no apparent reason. They won all the 3 world wars and this invasion was proof their strength hasn't diminished, Yura explained. I told you many times the alliances make you dependent and weak. I never thought of seeing this village fall to such degree, Chio said. Chio was one of the elders of the sand and the one that performed the sealing on Gaara. How much money are they asking? Kimi asked. For property damage and lives lost they ask for 50 billion inches, Yura said. That will almost destroy our economy. We must renegotiate with them, Kimi said. These terms are non-negotiable. We should never have placed our faith on Orochimaru of all people, Yura said shaking his head. So what's left of this village? Without help we will probably no longer be considered a shinobi village among the Great Five, Dai said. We must make new alliances, Aki explained and a few nodded. A new alliance would cement their growth so they can stand back up and prevent any attacks. Yes, send word for Tsuchikage, Yura said.